The following program deals with a controversial
subject.
The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation.
The viewer is invited to make a judgment based on all available information.
the top talents in the comic book business are here to tell everything they know.
Giggity.
Yeah. No sound.
Yeah, saying sound is off.
No sound.
Welcome, everybody, to the industry of comics. Thank you to OBS for making it hard on my life.
He said hard on the 69 episode.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys, we have certain guests on the show that we decided when we first started talking about the show that these are the guests that we really want to bring on at some point. We've talked about some of those guests before, and this tonight is one of those guests. And it feels good to bring her on finally. It's only our second guest, female representation guest on the show, which we got to be better about. But she is one of the greats in the industry, and we should have had her on way sooner. Ladies and gentlemen, we bring you Heidi MacDonald. Heidi, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Wow, with an intro like that. Rushmore? Did you say Rushmore?
Hey, this is the industry.
Rushmore!
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
that is with Rich Johnston, though. So
Fighting on the Rushmore. Fighting on the Rushmore.
Yeah, I think when you come into this industry, the people that come in really on the business end of it immediately know Heidi is one of the people that you want to get to know. She is well informed, and it gives you a great timeline, to go backwards on and also forwards.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
And by the way, Heidi, your stories and reporting on the whole diamond thing has been spot on since the beginning. It's been one of the places where I know your best friend Dennis here is constantly giving you props about how well those articles have been written and everything about it. It's just been amazing.
Well, listen, guys. It's fun to be here. First off, thank you for having me on, and I appreciate that. I really, really, really appreciate that. And I do know that you guys have been quoting my stories and bringing them up, and I check in here. I don't have 3 hours to watch every time, but I dip. I dip, and so I know you've been quoting my stories, and maybe one of the reasons I haven't been on before is because I've been too busy writing about this damn story. I mean, it's very time consuming. It's very draining, and it's very time consuming, and just emotionally, it's pretty much been what I've been doing since January 14th, which is of course the day Diamond declared bankruptcy, because as you guys know, and you are an integral part of it, part of the story, keystone of the story. This has not been your normal, typical bankruptcy, has it?
No, not even close.
To say the very least.
I think we all thought this was going to last a couple weeks. We're going to be in and out of this. Yeah, I think it's still funny that when we first did the interview with A&T, with Bruce at A&T, he said to us, after he asked us to take down the episode, it was like, don't worry, in 3 days, it'll go through. You can put back up the interview. So, that's the way
And
it
then,
works.
of course, I'm doing my own content about it, and I make a video, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, hold on. Don't release that video yet. They need another week to make the final decision. Yeah. Okay, they're making the decision tomorrow. Release the video. Wait, they're pulling out? What? Just leave the video and I'll make a catch-up video.
You know, let me tell you, like I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm just wrapping up on July 1st. I'll be ending my 20th year, or
Wow.
21st year, starting my 22nd. So,
Yeah.
you know, and let me tell you, I'm sure all of you are also industry veterans, and you know, you have the fire that you had in the early days, but then like, you know, you get a little tired, and sometimes you know, you're like, I still got it though. Let me tell you, the minute that podcast went live, I went back to my youngest cub reporter days. I was like listening and typing and just, you know, as fast as I was like, I got to get this up as fast as possible. And, you know, listening to the conversation with Bruce Ogilvy, and you know, getting that story up like ASAP, because I knew it was of vital importance to everybody who didn't have, you know, like I know most people actually like podcasts, but you know, I think a lot of people in the comics industry still like to read about things and maybe didn't want to spend an hour, you know, listening to what Bruce had to say. So you know,
Totally.
it was
Right.
a
So
real.
Heidi, I want to
Yeah.
ask you a background and a foreground on that
Sure.
question. So when they announced that morning A&T was the winner of the bid, I was watching all of the social media and it was like, who the hell's this? I don't know if this is a good fit. This is the worst thing for comic books, blah, blah, blah. And then after our interview, there was an entire another group that came out and said, did you hear what he said? This is the worst thing for comics. This is the worst thing for comics. And I mean, as somebody who knows this industry like you have for 20 years, did you think a lot of that was the sky is falling and things are about to change? Or do you think there was actual legitimate complaints about what Bruce said on this show?
Well, I think it was concerning what he said about the show, but at the same time, what he said was quite reasonable given what you might expect to hear from, you know, an executive at $1 billion company. I mean, I thought he was way more candid, and you know, obviously just going on your show, I thought he was pretty candid and plain spoken. I mean, you know, I was like, okay, I could see this, you know, I could see me talk to this guy at San Diego Comic-Con someday, you know, like they're throwing a party and I go, hi, I'm Heidi. You know, I mean, I've said this several times, so I'll say it here. It's like, you know, when that story dropped, and Dennis, you're right. It was like, oh my God, he doesn't know what Free Comic Book Day is, and he doesn't, you know, $5. I mean, I told one publisher who's deep into periodicals, because I was off to WonderCon right after that dropped, and I told him, I said, have you heard this? And he's like, no. And I said, well, you know, he says he doesn't want to carry anything under $20. And that guy's face was like literally, I'm not even exaggerating. I wish I'd had a camera. I should have done reaction videos. So yeah, there was a lot of legitimate concerns, and but given everything that's gone on in the last what is it, 3 months, 2.5 months, 3 months, I said go back and listen to that or read that interview, everything lands different now. Everything he said has a different context, because we know so much more about Ad Populum. We know more about Universal, right? And we know more about Alliance. So, you know, we know more about Diamond. We know, like every time he's talking about Raymond James, it really, right, Lance?
Yes.
It's just, it's the prima facie evidence for me. You know, it's the you know, the Rosetta Stone. I don't know what the word, the codex, you know.
Yep. Yep.
It's essential. It's essential and remarkable. And you know, that's why I came on this show, honestly. It's like you guys did an amazing thing with that, and that really created one of the best stories I've ever covered in my whole career. And I got a lot of traffic out of it, so I'm like, all right, let me repay the favor.
There you go. There you go.
Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah, my question to you, let's actually go back a little bit farther. Were you surprised at all about the Diamond BK?
About the Diamond bankruptcy?
Yeah.
I mean, I was surprised but not shocked. I mean, right? I mean, we all have faith in Diamond. I mean, it's Diamond. It's Steve Jeppy. You know, I should have found my Steve Jeppy toy that I have here. You know, that 35th anniversary one I got. I was cleaning up and I found I had 2 of them. So, you know, I was, but given everything that was going on, it unfortunately made sense. And of course, we now know that, you know, yes, there you go. Yep. Yeah. It's a good one. We now know that they hired Raymond James in September, and Alliance and Universal and Ad Populum were all sniffing around in September. And then, the first person they hired was in July. So we know this was 6 months of them knowing that they were going to have to. And so let me ask you guys, because that's the other reason I wanted to come in here. And again, especially for Dennis, it's hard for me to say, but I feel like you guys are one of the few media outlets that's actually been talking about this story in knowledgeable terms. And I really, when I do dip in and I hear you guys talking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a valid take. Not necessarily agree with it, but at least you're talking from some knowledge. So
Heidi, it's funny you say that, because that has been the whole reason. I'm coming from this side. I'm not an industry guy, and I am a collector through and through that, started creating content. And, I said, okay, I found out very early on in this channel's infancy that I didn't know shit about the industry. I didn't know anything. I thought I knew everything as a collector, and it was nothing. I knew nothing. And then I said to myself, well, I feel like that's most collectors out there that are into this hobby. They don't realize how the sausage is made. And that was the whole point, to create a show where people who do know how the sausage is made can come on and talk to their peers about how the sausage is made, which is just every single show we do. It blows me away, the information that I'm like, oh, I totally thought different on that.
Well, and it's funny from that standpoint, after we heard about the NDAs being signed in September and October, but Jesse and I were seeing these little chinks in the armor, and we're like, wait a second, did this close Plattsburgh out of nowhere and shift everything to Olive Branch? That's not normal. And then Chris Powell is like, all is well, remain calm. and I'm just like, okay, that's not the way you handle it.
That's the scariest thing you ever heard.
And then in November, boxes started showing up without that diamond tampo on the side. And I'm like, guys, that only happens when you can't pay the printer to put that stamp on the side of your box. Or you're buying boxes from a new source now. So we saw it, but clearly other people were dialed in through this lawyer at a higher level than what we were even predicting was going down.
Yeah.
Well, I spoke to somebody, Diamond had layoffs in this period, right? And I spoke to somebody who was laid off, and they said, it feels like they're preparing for a sale. And I, at that point, was kind of like, really? I guess. Sure. But I don't know. It seemed a little, I was skeptical, but guess what? They were 100% correct. I should have listened to them more. So, I know what I was going to ask you guys. Okay. So I have a whole list of questions. When I talk to people about this, I have my 3 questions that I ask. I think it's 3 questions. And the first one is, why do you think they couldn't close the sale in September and October, November? Because it sounds like Alliance wanted to buy them. Sounds like Universal wanted to buy them. Why couldn't they close the sale? Because that would have prevented a lot of heartache.
The debt.
The debt was too much.
Yeah. And the thing is we don't know what that debt was in, and I'll say this and I'll jump forward and then I'll jump back. The debt in September was probably only like 20 million. Or maybe 30. And if you remember, 11 million of that 33 million owed by retailers in January had only been accrued over the previous 90 days. So that's January to December 15th to November to October 15th. So that 11 million got tacked on to whatever that number was in September. Okay. And whatever they owed all of those publishers and sub-distributors, the 2 million to Penguin and the 1 million to Lunar, that was probably a smaller number then too. So nobody was willing to pay what they wanted for it then. And the space in between that is where it ballooned and forced everybody to get into that bidding war to get to that higher number.
Right. Right.
And that's where the gloves had to come off and they had to duke it out. And if you look, Universal was still really cheap in the offer. According, aside to Alliance, but Alliance had their eye, AENT, they had their eye on that gaming division and that 10 to 20 or 30 million dollars of WotC money every year. And that's what they wanted to get into. And once they realized that wasn't going to happen, they were out.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, I think you got that. Number one, I will say the number one reason it's because it's the comic book industry. I think, me coming from corporate and coming from Nordstrom and being in that world, I've seen a lot of companies go bankrupt. Nordstrom has bought a lot of companies, and we know it goes much quicker than this. I think the biggest thing is non-disclosure surprises. I think you go into a bankruptcy and that person declaring bankruptcy must disclose everything. And I think as days and days went by, they're like, well, what do you mean you don't have this? What do you mean this is how much is owned? What do you mean publishers haven't been
But
paid?
they didn't disclose everything. They didn't disclose the
Right.
WotC business. So I mean, who knows? Like if they couldn't get the banks to, and this is the answer I've heard, different versions, but pretty much essentially the same. If they couldn't get the banks to approve this sale with the numbers that they were fudging just as much as they could.
Yeah.
Right.
So what
Yeah.
they didn't do, which so we've been talking also about the Warner Brothers and Discovery are splitting up, and what they did was all the debt is moved to Discovery. So it's obviously that Warner Brothers is what they want to sell, and they're probably going to wait until July 11th and see what the Superman numbers are before they really take any real offers. But if Diamond had spun out all the debt for Diamond, they probably could have saved themselves Alliance. They could have saved themselves a lot and or kept Diamond with the debt and sold off Alliance, which people were willing to buy if it didn't have any debt, which it didn't. All the debt was in Diamond, but it was all under one. They were trying to sell it all as one. That debt is hard for businesses to swallow, to pay up.
Right.
Well, and one last thing on that is Diamond was a business, but they didn't do business like a business. And when you hear those numbers, like
your
for
uncle.
me, the $33 million owed by retailers just blew my mind.
Me too.
And then you hear about these loans. And I mean, a lot of this is Steve's generosity. He's like, oh, your company's doing bad. Here, let me give you $100K and you can take care of it over the time. Or, a company went, kind of low and they were like, oh, hey, let's bleed this out over a while. But at a certain point, the chickens have to come home to roost. And I think they all came home to roost around December or January.
Yeah, and I the final point I want to put in, when you go through bankruptcy, immediately the first question you're asking is about inventory, and not having a accurate inventory makes it extremely challenging for any business to go into. And I think that is my three things I looked at.
We've heard rumors about that whole inventory debacle for years. Like nobody knew what they had, how many they had.
Well, I could tell it now that it's all done. One night, Dirk and Jeremy and Scotty and I were having drinks in Baltimore, and they're like, "Dennis, you have no clue." I won't even do my Dirk impersonation, but he goes, "You have no idea. We had to hire an outside auditor to come in because Diamond was trying to charge us for 20 pallets of inventory, and this was after the second Hellboy movie." And because they did that huge push for, all the different trade paperbacks back in stock, et cetera. And they hired this forensic auditor to come in and they're like, hey guys, we only see 9 pallets. Where'd the other 11 pallets go that you were trying to charge us a stock fee on? And they're like, and they're like, okay guys, somehow you've either lost 11 pallets or you sold these somewhere else and we didn't get the money for them. whatever it is, and they renegotiated, and that was something that stuck with me. That stuck with me for a long time. That's the way they did business. And I told the story here. I know one retailer who got a truckload of air conditioner parts. And I bought out Desperado Publishing one time for 11 pallets, and I get 9 pallets that were on their way to Buddy Saunders, and they didn't know where my pallets were. So these things happen, but they don't happen if you've got control of it.
Well, I think there's a lot about the real estate of this deal that is very much that, there's just all these unknown unknowns, right? The known unknowns. And a lot of it seems to be about the real estate too, about these warehouses. Now, Diamond I think Diamond doesn't own the warehouses. But they have like long-term leases on them.
They built that warehouse.
Just the one.
Olive Branch.
They built, okay.
Remember,
I thought I saw some leases. And I look at the filings.
They might have done something, but when we had Comics Pro, the one Comics Pro meeting I went to in 2010, they had just opened that warehouse, and they gave a tour of that warehouse, and they were bragging about, this is the largest commercial fan.
Right.
But they built that. So you don't build that if you don't own the land that it's going on.
I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, there's definitely a lot of leases involved. Let me put it that way. And I mean, one of the other keys is this Alliance has their own warehouse, which is in, where is it? Indiana?
Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Fort Wayne, Indiana, right?
I've actually been to it.
Okay. So, and that's another key part, because everybody, in this Universal is going to come to the United States theory, which, as we know, isn't really a theory. I mean, they want to do it. The question is, can they do it, right? But so this Fort Wayne facility that Alliance has, and okay, so by the way, whenever I go on a podcast, I say Alliance Entertainment is Alliance. When I talk about Alliance Games, I say Diamond Games. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and I say you all should do it, because otherwise we don't.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. Okay. So this we're talking about Alliance Games, Diamond Games. So they have this warehouse in Fort Wayne, and apparently that, now, but Universal has Alliance. So that's where they're going to, I will, what is it? Chuck Rosansky says, feldspar, right? Feldstone. That's his feldstone. So that's their Feldstone, the United States. Is that?
So
that
I've
warehouse.
been to the Alliance warehouse back when it was in Baltimore.
Don't say Alliance, Dennis. You got to say Diamond Games.
The Diamond Games. And I've been to the Diamond Games in Fort Wayne. And that's not an impressive enough warehouse to do anything out of. It's literally a strip mall warehouse. And in fact, actually, I'll tell you one better than that in Fort Wayne is Lunar. Lunar's warehouse and Discount Comic Book Services warehouse in Fort Wayne.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's a beast compared to the Alliance warehouse, or to the Diamond Games warehouse. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what they think they bought personally.
Well, okay. So now the second question then. Let's go to the second question. And I'm sure you guys have talked about this too. Why? Oh, okay. I'll tell you the 3 questions. The first one is, why didn't they sell it? We know that Diamond was so crappy, so much debt. No bank would finance it. Nobody could make the numbers work. Okay. So the second question is why was Diamond, by which I actually mean apparently Robert Gorin and Raymond James, because they are the ones who've been running this bankruptcy, right? Okay. Why were they so set against the Alliance Entertainment bid, even though it was higher? Why did they do everything they could to get Universal and Ad Populum's bid accepted? Okay, and we don't have. I'll jump into the third question, because the third question is, in that case, why did Universal buy Alliance Games when everybody says they want to do the comics? Why did Ad Populum even buy anything, since they don't seem interested in doing anything?
Because none of them wanted to do the comics, in my opinion. I feel like they realized that they're, even though they might not seem like they're smart businessmen, I think that they know enough to see the writing on the wall that this is not an industry that's going to continue to make a ton of money over the next 10 years. that's just my opinion. As somebody that's looking from the outside in, I don't think A&T, I don't think they were wanting to be in the comic book business to begin with. I felt like that way it was very evident in our interview that they just wanted the distribution avenues. They just wanted the collectible avenues that maybe they had some thoughts of getting into big box stores and stuff with the collectibles. I felt like that was, and they wanted nothing to do with the comics. But the weirdest thing to me is that Universal Ad Pop, it felt like they were the savior of comics when they were being talked about as, okay, the Diamond middle management really wants Universal Ad Pop to be the winner in this because they feel like they're going to continue the comics, business moving forward. And I feel like that was just a ruse too. I don't think Diamond Ad
first
Pop
of all,
and
let me
Universal.
correct you, Brian. It was the Diamond upper management that wanted Universal Ad Pop. The Diamond
and also Robert Gorin and Raymond James. Okay.
Well, and the only reason I can think that is that there's relationships. Huh?
Like I said, I got to hear this.
Well, so when I talked to one of my contacts when this first got announced, he's like, oh, Raymond James is doing it? I've known Raymond for 20 years. And Raymond James, I think, is one of those old school guys that has a lot of contacts. And my friend was willing to make a phone call to Raymond James. And I'm like, no. Because I was interested in one piece of property, maybe two, at the Diamond liquidation. And I was like, no, let's not do that. Let's see how this plays out. I'm not ready to put something on the table. So yada, yada, yada. I think a lot of people in that world knew who Raymond James was personally. And I think when those calls started getting made, opinions started getting made, and that old boys club. I mean, I read your first story about the first, and you were talking about the suits, and you were talking about the coffee, and you're talking about the swanky office. I saw a different image. I was listening to you describe an episode of Suits where the decision had already been made and all these people came in, but this outsider, AENT, sent a bigger check and they all had to deal with that.
Well, I'm not sure AENT is a outsider. Like everybody who I saw that day at Raymond James reminded me of like the people you see at Toy Fair, like the kind of guys in suits that you see like taking meetings at Toy Fair. And, they were all at Toy Fair, it turns out. Alliance, Alliance was there, AENT was there. I talked to a bunch of people at different companies because honestly, one of the things when you talk to Bruce Ogilvy and I said this in my piece, and I've said this a few times, but nobody really seems to accept it, is that this really was about toys at the end of the day.
100%.
And the effect that Diamond's bankruptcy has had in the toy industry is actually pretty huge.
It's huge.
And it's the tariff issue has really overshadowed it. The toy industry, they don't have, as far as I could tell, right? They don't have podcasts like this in the toy industry, right? Like
there's
I
a few. I watch
them.
them.
Are there? Okay, because I was going to say I've been trying to find some dirt from the toy people, but they're not quite as chatty as we are.
I'll send you a couple links of people to watch.
I mean, not all right. I'd be, I'd check into it because it's like it just seems to be that this toy turmoil, classic Heidi headline, and even for comic stores, like comic shops ordered a lot of toys and games from Diamond Games.
Were they still the exclusive distributor of Bandai at the end?
I don't think so.
Okay, because that was a giant announcement like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long that lasted.
Well, they used to be huge at Toy Fair, right?
Yeah.
Something at Funko too, didn't they have announcement of Funko?
Yeah.
That they were going to do some exclusives with Funko.
So, Dungeon, I'm in the same boat as you, being a Tampa Bay Buccaneer fans. The stadium is called Raymond James. So,
right.
We're not talking about him. This is a different
We might
person.
actually.
No, it's a different person. Yeah, different person. Don't start that rumor. All right. So you have inherited non-essential assets happening where a company comes in, they buy something, and they inherit all these assets. And they literally say, out of these 10 assets we're getting, 8 of them are non-essential to us. How do we get rid of them the day we take over? And I think when you go to your second question, that's one of the resistant factors you get from the diamond company itself, where people in those divisions are saying, wait a minute, we just watched a video that we are not going to be in existence the second they take over. So you create this resistance factor based on assets that they don't want. I think in the end of the day, is there an egotistical move there of saying, we'll just take everything? We don't want to piecemeal this. Just give us everything.
Yeah.
Now, finding out they're not going to get Overstreet and a couple other assets, whatever, that probably didn't matter at all. But I think as a whole, when you look at something that is divisional and it has all these different divisions that don't match up accordingly, I think that's why all this has happened. I think sometimes when someone bids just to bid to win 10% of what they're bidding on, that creates what we're talking about today.
Well, but I mean, here's the thing, and I look at this. I look at Ogilvy as being kind of like Jesse and I and Emmett. When we get offered a collection, hey, my husband passed away. Can you come out and take a look at this collection? And we might not be selling this, that, or the other thing at the time, but we make the offer on everything knowing that this collection is a lot better than buying just this one piece that can make me money.
Mm-hmm.
So when Bruce looked at this diamond thing and he's like, oh, you got 13 divisions, one of which is making $40 million a year. We can amortize that over 5 years. And as long as that makes the 200, we can offer 89 million for all of this. And at certain point, we can sell off this, whatever this grading company is.
Well, I think one of the very interesting things about all two of the three suitors was that okay, Ad Populum is very, very experienced at buying distressed assets. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Hastings.
I think they did, was it Movie Stop, right? Loot Crate, Rubies. I'm sure there's others. Yeah, they have a big giant list. I mean, that's just the companies that we, made our headline. So so that's why I have to say this whole ghosting everybody is so deliberate. I mean, it's not like, oh boy, I don't what's going on. Well, gosh, I don't know. It's like, what you're doing. You've done it before. This is what you do.
Well, because here's the thing. If you look at all those companies, they all got absorbed into the bodies.
Right.
And they knew before they signed that paper that they were going to fire this division and this division and this division. But they had this goodwill from the comic book industry. Oh, well, they're better than the guy who doesn't want to sell $5 comic books.
I like those NECA. I like my NECA toys. NECA toys are cool. I like WizKids.
Yeah.
To be fair, they are making those incredible Halloween costume. Those
but that's because they bought Rubies and absorbed it into NECA.
I want those toys. I don't want to piss them off. I really think Ad Populum's awesome.
There you go.
I really admire Joel Weinshanker, and I really want to get those toys. So anyway, but Dennis, I think you've nailed. Honestly, I think you're right. I mean, there's just obviously.
Hold on. Say that again, Heidi.
I'll say, Dennis, I agree with you. I agree with the basic of what you just said about the answers to my questions, because it's obvious there's so much going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. Okay, and I'm sure we have lots of leaks. All of us have talked to people, but there's still some deep, as I say, it's like Aslan. It's Narnia. It's like deep magic before the dawn of time. And you're absolutely right that there's some backroom connection between these people. There's some, we're in the bankruptcy club, stuff going on where they knew each other or they talked to each other, said, I would love to flip that, And
That might
everybody,
be a good story to dig on. Look
well,
at all those companies that
That's the
that
thing. I
Universal.
never got a list of all the things that Diamond had that was up for sale. I never
Mhm.
saw a good
That's,
list
oh
because there's
right,
Iron Guard. What happened to Iron Guard?
Iron Guard was in there, but it wasn't. It was so dinky. You know, that's the sad thing, is that so many of Diamond's businesses were so sad and dinky that they didn't even merit their own line
Right.
on the sales sheet. You know, and I mean, yeah, you know, I mean, I'm sure you guys have talked about Overstreet, and also, you know, what is a Disney Gemstone, whatever.
Yeah.
And you know, I guess Jeppy still owns those.
Yep.
He's
Right.
got all
Yep.
these
Yep.
other companies, right? And
Yep.
you know, what about Diamond UK? I mean, that's the fourth question. Nobody can answer. What has happened? But people say, well, it might have already been sold. I don't know. Like, it's just mired in this
Well,
mystery.
we have probably an even bigger question, but we need to get into unfiltered for that. Let's do it. Here we go.
Oh,
Yo, is this on?
The most valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
cucumber.
All right. So
Get it,
the
Brian.
big what if or what about is something that probably one of the biggest questions that we get over here on this channel. We all love Nick Barucci over here. He's one of the good guys in this industry. We love Dynamite. We love what they do throughout the years. And Dynamite is probably the biggest what about question. And there's all the stuff that's coming out day after day, about, where the situation Dynamite is in. And, recent news over the last couple of weeks has been very interesting. And I would love to get your thoughts and kind of like looking back, from what's going on and your relationship with Nick. What are your thoughts on the whole Dynamite thing, Heidi?
Right. Well, I will say Nick and I are very good friends. And so, you know, I do report on Dynamite, but if it's I recuse myself from certain things just because, you know, we are good personal friends. And I think he said that all. And, I think Nikki's a very kind person. He's a very, very kind-hearted and very generous person. So, and he's made mistakes, and I've told him he's made mistakes. And then he said, Heidi, you were right. So that's it. He's in my good
Yes.
books forever. What happened? Look, I don't know. And I say that as someone who's talked to Nikki several times in the last 6 months. My guess, I guess, like he's just trying to stay on his own boat. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody's got their little boat out of the Titanic diamond, right? Like, some people were jumped on the Lunar Express, and some people got on the PRH, Zeppelin, and all these other little dinky dingies of distribution. That's good. This is why I talk. Dinky dingies of distribution. I'm using that.
I love
Um, yeah, and I mean, I think it's obvious. I think Nick thought that he would go with whoever Diamond bought Diamond.
Yep.
And continue that relationship.
I also think
And
at the same
what
time,
else could it
you have
be?
that relationship with the Jeppies, which plays such a big part in this, right? And
Mhm.
to me, that was as being kind of the outsider looking in, that was the biggest part of this whole thing that was so surprising, is the talk about the Jeppies and how they're still, it says a lot about the Jeppies to still have this thought process of like the respect for the Jeppies, and I'm rocking with the Jeppies no matter what type attitude that I think some people have in this industry.
Well, I don't think too many people have too much of that. I think it's, somebody left the cake out in the rain for that. And, I
Well,
just, I mean, before you go, I think people have a lot of personal relationships with Steve Jeppy. Absolutely. And the Jeppy family, for sure. I don't think anyone's ever going to do business with Steve Jeppy ever again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the hard part, right? That's the
Well,
part where
Well,
everybody goes,
Yeah, see, I don't, in business, I don't believe that's ever true. There's people who've sunk and they've returned.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he built a huge business many years. If he could make me money,
Well, if Steve was younger, I would say yes, but he is in his retirement years,
right?
and so I think, I mean, well, who knows? Vince McMahon wants to come back, so he's a, a
What
monster,
do
so
we think?
anything's
Steve's hands
possible.
were off the wheel for a few years.
We know they were.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're talking about
When
five.
when he
almost
had that
10
when
years.
he had that instability issue, where he couldn't, I forget what.
Vertigo.
Yeah, vertigo. I saw him at all the retailer summits, and he was not the same Steve.
Right.
But he had to rely on everybody else to make sure he could maneuver that situation, which was great. I mean, we had him at the. I think we had him at the Detroit Fan Fair that you came to when we gave him the
Oh yeah,
lifetime achievement, and
Yeah,
he was
that's right.
there, and he was running around and everything.
yeah. No, I mean,
So, I've
Yeah.
seen him at the high and I've seen him at the low, and
well, go on. I'm sorry.
no, and it was just I think that something like this was just something he wasn't willing to fight for anymore, and I think
Well,
that's
okay.
why.
I'm gonna jump in here and say like, have look? I have a lot of notes on this story. I've talked to a lot of people about this story. I'm not gonna give the whole thing that I've talked about on this podcast because look, I'm gonna write like
Yeah,
I'm not sure I'm gonna write a book. I don't think it's worthy of a book, but I'm
write a
definitely
comic book.
writing a tell-all about this at some point
Yeah.
because there is so much other stuff.
Yeah.
And but I will say this. I mean, I've written about it before. It was the interregnum. It was when Steve and I'd forgotten. You know what? I'd forgotten about his vertigo issues. It was right about that time when they formed the Jeppy Family Enterprises as a holding
Yep.
company to be over all the diamond stuff, and they hired that guy Stan Heidemann to run things, and that guy was a disaster.
Yeah,
He is the one I've heard so many stories about this guy and shocking stories. I mean, not, like, personal, Me Too stories, but just like business things that are just like, you what? Like
Yeah.
talk about an outsider. And so
Right.
that's what I think, Steve, and you saw this during the pandemic. I mean, this is one question I've asked that I've answered. It was Stan Heidemann's decision to shut down
yeah.
during the pandemic on what is it, March 23rd, whatever or April,
The week
whatever
after
date.
15th. It was the week after
Yeah.
the 15th.
Yep. It was like the 20th or the 19th. And it was his decision to do it. Now, I believe that's what killed Diamond. That was the moment Diamond died, right?
I agree.
And other people are like, "Oh, it saved the industry." I'm like, I don't think so, but okay.
No, they
Um,
needed that constant cash flow
Yeah.
yeah,
to
and I
keep
mean,
paying down that debt.
and it's
Well-
like everything else you can buy. I mean, it is a pandemic, but you go on freaking Amazon and buy whatever you want.
Yep.
But you can't buy comic books.
Well, I
That's
got
the
this.
problem.
I got this from a very good source. When Marvel ended up having to come to Diamond at the very end of the Heroes World debacle, when Diamond had gathered up everybody else on
So
their
you're going
ship.
back to the 90s. Let's just give this context. You're talking
Yeah.
like 94,
4,
95, 96.
5, yeah.
Okay.
So there was a deal that DC Comics made with Diamond that said, we technically have the right to buy Diamond if you decide to sell. Because DC wanted to own their distribution chain
Correct.
if this happened. And when Marvel came on board, it was after that deal had been struck. And Marvel was always going to be second banana at Diamond. Now, I think that deal was long forgotten when COVID happened because DC said, okay, guys, you're closing. That's fine, but we want to renegotiate. And I have this on very high terms as well. And somebody, and I'm pretty sure it's who you're talking about, said, no, we're not renegotiating. No, we'll keep it in the same terms and blah, blah, blah. Then we're considering you in breach of contract and we're going to go move over here.
I mean, I think this story had deeper roots than the version you just mentioned. Okay. because there was a lot of concern. Now, I actually did a post about that. It was during COVID, so I had lots of free time. No, everybody did, so everybody was great. You learned things all day, and uh,
What'd you crochet?
no, no crafting, no crafting. I just worked out all the time, man. But I learned how to cook. So there was a post at the Beat that is specifically about that clause because somebody brought it up in a Brian Hibbs comment thread, and then Eric Reynolds came in, and then Steve Jeppy stepped in, and I think John Cunningham. I mean, all the main players were in this thread, and basically they said yes, that had existed. And the reason why Eric Reynolds from Fantagraphics came because he broke that story when he was a reporter at the Comics Journal. It was a huge controversy back in the '90s that somebody at Diamond had read this clause. It was so disturbed by it that they faxed a copy of the contract to the Comics Journal, which of course huge breach of ethics, but whistleblower.
Yep.
And so that had existed, but there was it no longer was required. It no longer was part of the business. It wasn't germane. That was, as I put it, that was a Paul and Bob thing.
Okay.
And Paul and Bob were long gone, so I don't think that clause was still extant during COVID. But I mean, it's an interesting. Look. My other key, which has now been taken down, but on my Rosetta Stone Codex, my whatever the Sherlock Holmes is. Boy, so many metaphors, terrible. Is Diane Nelson, the former head of DC, and she had that comment on Facebook. She wrote so many things, then she took it down, but she said, it was like Diamond refuses to upgrade its systems and might not even be solvent. And she said that in like 2019.
Wow.
And or it might have been early 2020. It was
she departed right around 2019, and then a lot of people don't also figure in this. A month or two before COVID, they had that secret firing of Dan DiDio that he did not know about because the whole DC people were scheduled to go. I think
the luckiest man on earth, Dan DiDio. Yep.
Yeah. And the second Dan was gone, and we said this all through this bankruptcy talk, I don't think a Dan DiDio, I don't think a Bob Wayne DC Comics would have ever done that, but by getting Dan out of the way, all the people who were left at DC pulled the trigger on that move out of Diamond.
Oh no, Dennis, you got that part wrong.
Oh, please enlighten me.
Dan was ready to leave Diamond. Yeah, no. That had nothing to do with it. No, because it just if you read the Diane comment, look, that's what I'm saying. It goes back a lot farther, and just to like DC being concerned with Diamond and their Windows 96 operating system.
Yeah.
Right. And just, like the handwriting was on the wall for even before March 2020. So just to circle back to what we were saying before about, Steve Jeppy, it's like, Stan Heidemann makes this decision, which will end up destroying the company. It's too late. After it's been done, it's too late. And, I just have this cartoon in my head. If I believed in AI, I would make an AI version of this, but I don't, so I won't. But you could imagine it in your heads. Steve suddenly, what's happening? Because, right? Because then he went on his own charm offensive. Remember, he went on the live podcast. And
our comeback is going to be bigger than our setback.
Right? Yeah. And it's just like it's like Grandpa woke up and saw the wheel, and he's grabbed the wheel, and Stan Heidemann got fired in June of 2020. That's one of my favorite. I'm pretty sure I reported at the time, but he did not last after that. So yeah, it was really Steve. I think Steve Jeppy's a really brilliant businessman. I mean, he has to be to have survived and built a company that was that successful for that long. Okay. And, maybe there was some things that he did that rubbed some people the wrong way and, made some enemies along the way for sure. But I give him credit for that. I have a lot of respect for what he did. But decisions were made that did not allow the company to survive.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. The pivoting decisions did not happen. In this world, we have to pivot freaking stop. And
Right?
when you're a distributor dealing with retailers you're a distributor dealing with 1,500 retailers that have to pivot weekly, and you're not keeping up with that. I think that's where the challenges come. You can be loyal. I think when you talk about Nick, you're talking about a guy who's extremely, extremely loyal, ran up that hill, put the flag in the ground, and never let go of that flag. And this is where we're at today. But a lot of companies didn't do that, and they did pivot, and they did go to other distributors. And so that's the world we're in.
Well, and I'll go one step further with that, Jesse. Nick is locked into this business model, and I just jokingly refer to it as 26 covers of Vampirella #3. And that's what makes him his money. But as we know from Mark Spears and Keenspot, Lunar is only going to allow 4 variant covers, okay, for the #1 selling indie book.
Not just Lunar,
in the industry,
distribution, the big distribution
Right.
models for the future are only going to do that as of right now, right? Because they
and
don't
Penguin
have
Random House will let Marvel do 39 variants, but they're not going to let
it's
one
Marvel.
of the other companies that comes into Penguin do that.
But what I don't get is if they're not doing the printing, it's volume, right?
Well,
it
that's
is
the
a little
old
bit
school
more work to
mentality,
get the
right?
Different things.
That's not how that business works. The business works on space. Space is what they work on. So if you come in and say, I'm taking 39 spots, but spots 15 through 39 only have 10 covers to it, that space, they're losing money. So it's a space issue when you get to warehousing
Well,
and
and it's
distribution.
back in 2010 or 9, I said to Nikki at the retailer summit, I'm like, Nikki, I have 3 Green Lantern titles and you have 4 Green Hornet titles. I'm not giving you 4 spots on my wall, Nikki.
Right.
Yeah, there's a slightly emerald hornet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Green
And it was just
Green
like,
Hornet.
okay, I
Year
get it
one.
that you got 1 successful Green Hornet and you had 2 kind of successful Green Hornets, but when you got to 4 and DC was only putting out 3 Green Lanterns, I got to think of my green section on my wall,
Well,
and I can't have 7 spots for that.
this brings me to like a new question for Heidi is the distribution model has changed drastically. That's obvious, and the one thing that Nick has done very well in the past that seems to be something that moving forward is going to be a big part of the comic industry is crowdfunding, with the IPs that he's got and everything. What are your thoughts on the distribution model of the future for comics? Do you see any problems like, Penguin Random House, Lunar, the small indie titles? It's all in upheaval right now. What are your thoughts on the future?
Well, I mean, I think it's impressive that Random House and Lunar have stepped in and built, fairly successful businesses. I mean, I think you can pick apart, this and that. I mean, obviously, PRH did not understand that retailers are, like their corners nice and sharp. But they pivoted. They figured that out and realized that was very key. But so it's not impossible to get into the traditional distribution model, right? But at the same time, it's the fate of the pamphlet, the fate of the periodical. And my whole career was based on uplifting the graphic novel and sort of maybe kind of saying I didn't like floppies along the way, or like the stranglehold that the floppy had on the comic book industry up until about 2001, 2002, the manga era really was the hindering growth, right? So as far as the future goes, yes, I mean, yes. There is a future. Yeah, I mean, we're going to see more crowdfunding. I mean, there are just more avenues. There are more channels. There are more ways to do it. And I do think we're going to see some of these dinky dingies, or, some of these small fish are going to rise and become larger players. I mean, I don't like to say, well, I know Dennis just told a great story about the 90s. I've told some old timey stories too. I don't like saying, well, in the 80s we had this, and, it's just, didn't have the internet. So it doesn't matter. Doesn't
Yep.
matter what happened in the 80s, the 90s.
Amen.
Okay. But it doesn't really matter what happened in 2005 either.
Yeah.
Great
Like
point.
social media. So that said, back in the 80s, there was a whole bunch of distributors, and they sold tons and tons of copies. And, there was a lot more stores, and there was a lot more distributors. And it was, in little indie comics sold like 20,000 copies. It's, 50,000 copies. It was unheard of, just numbers unheard of today. So I do think more competition is very healthy, and I think we will see some new Jeppy arise, just in terms of some smart person who's very passionate about it. Like, you've got to be passionate to do this, right? Like, to be in the distribution business, the middleman business, you've got to have some love for it or passion for it, because it's, yeah, you can make money at it, but it's just, you make a dime each time. It's like
Yeah.
you never make $1 million at it, right?
Well, you brought up the some of these people, like the Heinemann guy who comes in to Diamond. Like there's these guys that I wouldn't say they're what like Dennis likes to call the middlemen, but they're these guys who maybe are financial guys who are not into comics, don't know the history of comics, that are coming in and making these changes. Do you think it's important to have people, like you said, that are passionate about comic books in these roles for
Oh,
the future?
I mean, look, you need, yes, passion, 100%. However, you always need a push and pull. You always need, like,
Different ideas.
like a different person to ask why, because unless you're Miyazaki, right? Miyazaki can just do whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah.
And that's it. Anybody, who says don't do that, Hayao, no, let him do it, right? There's very few people like that, Paul McCartney, he can do whatever he wants, right? Ringo Starr, he can do whatever he wants. But in general, I think it's good to have a mix. I think it's good to have that scary numbers person who makes you do a really good P&L, because I'll tell you, I've had my shots at publishing and editing and stuff, and I have all these wild, crazy ideas, and then the numbers person comes in and they're like, well, what about this and what about that? You're crestfallen, but you also realize they're right. I'm not, I mean, I don't run, the Beat's 20 years old. It isn't because I made a lot of money at it, I'll tell you that. It's just for pure passion.
Amen.
Yeah. So, I think, at the same time, you have to have vision. Somebody has to have vision. I think Steve Juppy had vision, and I feel like out of all these people, the only one who's spoken with a vision is actually your man, Bruce, right? Like, he seemed like Alliance Entertainment seems to have some kind of plan to do things. And, they bought a toy company and they're making their own toys. Might be a really crappy time. Well, now I can swear, right? But
Yes.
might be a really, yeah, okay. Might be a really crappy time to go into the toy business, but obviously people are going to continue to want cool tchotchkes and toys.
Well, to circle back around to the beginning here, it feels like, and we talked about this, it feels like kind of AT&T came out on the top on this whole thing, right? I mean, they're figuring out their avenues into new distribution markets, which is probably what they wanted in this whole thing. They're not having to deal with a lot of the craps that comic books and periodicals bring with it that they maybe didn't know about. They're getting money back on the whole thing just for their time and wasted effort. Maybe that's it. Like, it feels like AT&T is on the top of the mountain in this whole thing.
Right. Well, the biggest value they got brand exposure, because no one knew who they were before this even happened. So when you take the brand value they got for this, it's off the charts.
But I also
the
think
brand value in our world, because
Right.
I do know a lot of people do them in the music and home video world, but yes,
Yeah.
in
Right.
our world, yes.
Right.
But I think they're used to selling to more like the big box stores. Maybe the vinyls, maybe to vinyl shops, retro vinyl shops. But I'm telling you, man, I looked over their pricing sheets, and no mom and pop is living on those margins.
Yeah.
They're selling to stores that live on small margins because they have high volumes.
The record business is making way more than the comic business, and there's more record stores out there than there are comic shops.
Right, but if I had to put out $40 to make $6, I wouldn't be in business for very long.
Well, because we're lazy, because we're used to a comic model that ran Diamond into the ground, though, Emmett.
Well, I make small margins on new books too.
Right.
But like
exactly.
I'm able to buy closeout toys from Diamond. I was able to buy closeout comics from Diamond. There was a
Listen
lot
to
of
what you
stuff that I
said,
could
though,
make
Emmett.
margins on.
We'll talk about this in the second
Always.
part.
Yeah.
But
So,
Anyways.
so you guys, I gotta jump pretty soon because
I
I
know.
gotta
Yeah,
see
I
the
wanna
end of
ask
this
you-
Mets game. So,
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
before
yeah,
you
yeah,
jump,
yeah.
Tied up in the ninth.
Go Mets.
Yeah. I want to bring up a couple of things that we always like to talk about whenever we have people on this show that have been in the industry for a while, especially creators. We like to talk about it with creators a lot, and you've kind of dipped your toes in this creator world. I love myself some old school Amazing Heroes magazines, and I was going through one the other day, and
Oh,
hold
yeah,
on
there you
here.
go.
There is here
Oh,
we
man. At the Harveys. What the hell is that? I don't even remember that.
Yeah.
Is it me like doing some predictions for the Harveys?
It is. It is you talking about,
Okay.
and here's the question. What is your very first published work in the world of comics?
It was in the Comics Journal. I think it might have been issue 41 or 42, or maybe 81 or 82. I don't remember the issue number anymore, but what was on the cover? Oh man, I don't remember. If I saw it, I would know. Anyway, it was a review of Murata the She-Wolf by Chris Claremont and John Bolton. And, which I had just, this is a long time. This is when you had to have typewriters and whiteout, Correcto tape. Remember the Correcto tape? So I was sitting there. There's a picture of me. I've posted several times where I'm a teenager and I got my typewriter and I'm just typing, like so intently on that. And that was me, man. That was me. So I just typed up, my deep thoughts, and I mailed it off in an envelope. And it was Dwight Decker. He was a fan writer at the time who found it in the slush pile. He said, "Oh, this is pretty good." And he published it, and that was it. Then
It's awesome.
that was it. And the Amazing Hero stuff. Fun fact about the Amazing Hero stuff is that Mark Waid was the editor of Amazing Heroes for a while. I don't know if it was specifically that issue, right? But he was my editor at Amazing Heroes because he started out as just another fan guy, right, from Texas.
Yep.
And so he was my editor on some pretty trying, like the preview special. Remember that? That was like the internet of the day. It was this big, thick issue where we talked to all the people and found out what was happening in all the books. Unthinkable now.
My favorite part of that magazine was that last page where it was like, what's coming out from Hollywood? And it was like optioned.
Right.
It was just like 30 years later when all of these people have options, but nothing gets produced.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, I do. Yes, there you go. The day I called Fred Hembeck by Mark Waid. Yeah. Well, I always I say this, Mark was probably the top 3 editors I've ever had in my life. Really, he was a really great editor. He fixed my copy. He, fixed my typos. He, improved my copy edited my writing. So that's amazing. I mean, not that I'm a good copy editor, as you can tell if you read the beat, but he definitely made improvements, and he also was very supportive. Super, I was just a young Tyro. I mean, he's not much older than me. We were both young kids, so.
How old were you when you first started?
He's like 3 months older than me or something like that. We're the same age. But he was a really, really great supportive early editor that I had on an Amazing Heroes. And, when people ask me, obviously Mark's had an incredible career since then. But I like to point out, that he was very young and very, very very good at what he did.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about that time period with Mark, and how positive it was for the industry, and I miss those. I miss those days. I think that we talk about this all the time. Also, that I feel like comics journalism is a shifting thing, and one of the few places that you can actually get good comics journalism is, of course, the Beat, which, if you guys don't know, Heidi founded and is just doing such a great job over there. So.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
thank
very
you so
kind.
much.
Let me plug comicsbeat.com. That's comicsbeat.com. We also have our sister site kcomicsbeat.com about webtoons and Korean comics, and a lot is going on in that world. So yeah, but thank you. I mean, I like I said, I do know that you've been quoting some of our coverage on here, so I know you're not just saying that, and that's really very, very gratifying to know that it's being read, and
And
appreciate it. So
and even
so
better, you're getting ready to go watch the end of the game. Heidi is a Mets fan, ladies and gentlemen, and
it is tied up. I was hoping that was a dream, but no.
there's a majority of
Damn it,
us over here on Beyond Wednesdays that are Mets fans, including myself. So,
And myself.
yes,
Oh
and
wow!
Emma,
Okay,
yeah.
right. Well, it's
So-
a heck of a season.
Tigers when I can.
Yes.
Go
yes.
enjoy the game, Heidi. And here's the
All
biggest thing: we're gonna bug you even more to come back on the future. We love what you do, and we can't wait to have you back.
Well, thank you. It was really great to talk about this, and like I said, I'm still trying to find the answers, and I really enjoyed this conversation. So, thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure to be on here.
Thank you,
I want
Heidi.
to thank you. I want to give you one personal thank you, Heidi. As often as we disagree about so many topics, you always give me a big hug or a high five when I see you at San Diego or at a convention, and you've never let our disagreements get between us being cordial, and I've always appreciated that.
I mean, why would I? It's just difference of opinion. So,
Exactly.
Amen.
anyway.
Amen.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye bye. That was one of the best, you guys. Heidi MacDonald, one of the people that we wanted to bring on this show at the very beginning when we first started talking about it, and that I can't wait to have her on again. She is a wealth of knowledge about this industry, and that was awesome. That was a bucket list moment for us.
Absolutely.
So
I wanted to circle back so we didn't tie it up while Heidi was here. Emmett, one of the things that you said, and it doesn't bother me because I took advantage of it too, but it was actually indicative of how not solid Diamond's business model was all of those giant, massive clearances. That's not healthy for an industry. Like Jesse, clearance is almost a loss in everybody's book, right? In the corporate world.
Well, in the corporate world, it's done different because you're taking your margins, your turn rates, and your sell-throughs, which we don't do in the comic book world. So at some point, you paid for your product 10 times. So it doesn't matter if you put it up for 90%.
Off.
That's immaterial because now it's just free
You need
money.
the space.
We're in the comic book world, we don't do that. We just say, oh my gosh, 5 months ago, the cost on this was $2.50, but sell it for $1. And oh, by the way, publisher, by the way, when we pay you your $1, we're then take our percentage out, and then you got your stocking fee. So when we send you that check for 3 cents, you're good to go. That's not a good way to do business. And I think the reason why we are in this position is because not knowing how turn rates, sell-throughs, and bottom lines actually work when you do discount product. If you're paying stuff for $1 to get rid of it, that's not a good thing in the comic book world.
Years ago, though, the comic book company, Marvel, DC, and others made their money on the advertisement.
Right.
They had ad sales men, and they would sell all the ads, and that paid for the comic, and whatever Diamond did with it afterward, they paid them their little thing, but it didn't really matter because they had already made their money. Now they're actually wanting to make money on the actual sale of the book, and they're selling it.
Well, I wouldn't say wanting. I think they have to.
I'm sorry. That's the more correct way. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
They have to because they can't sell the they don't have a good ad sales team. It's usually money. It's Marvel and DC money in the bank, right? So
Yeah.
it's a Marvel movies in there, or maybe Chevy, or or some car company that they're almost doing trade for, but they're not paying for the book. Listen, it's still in comics, even at full price. If I pay $2.50 for a comic and it's $5, if I get the 50% off, which I'm not getting on DC, but let's just use Marvel. After that 50% and I take out all my costs, maybe I make 22%, 19%, somewhere in there is what my profit is. If I'm buying a vinyl record from AENT at $38 and I get to make $6, if I do that 1,000 times, I've paid 38 grand to make 6. It's just not sustainable. I mean, for the 2 record days a year, it's just not worth it. I sell tons of albums, but I'm buying on the secondary market to resell, and the profit margin is phenomenal.
I know a lot of people, that buy all of their toys through, at the time, Diamond. And those profit or those discount rates were sometimes 20, 30% off of the retail. I know people who do incredible money with Hot Toys.
Depending on the comic, the company, yeah.
Hot Toys has less than 20% profit margin baked in.
That's why I don't carry them.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is there's plenty of people who make money on those margins because they've centered their business model. But because we, as comic
then they have
retailers,
to do volume.
Well, right, but you're.
Let me just throw this in here just to clear this up a little bit. The comic book world, where they F up, and they F up big time, is they say MSRP. Why? Because they put the freaking price on the book.
Yep.
Right.
So when the book comes out that you pay $2.50, that has $4.99, and it comes up on new issue day, it's very tough to put it for $7.99 unless it's a 1 in 25 or something like that, right? If you go in and you buy a Michael Jordan Series 25 and you get that box, guess what's on that box? Nothing. No prices. Why? Because you charge what you have to charge, right? It's no longer mandatory SRP, it's SRP, suggested. Right. And so that's the difference that we're talking about right now.
It's
so
the
if
same
you
with
take
Pokemon
a record,
and Magic.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
And of course, Magic raised their SRP after they had massive sellouts on Final Fantasy.
Right.
Well,
exactly.
We oh, go ahead, Jesse. I apologize. I was interrupting.
No. Go ahead. We got so many.
We got I mean, there is some
on.
huge news in this industry that we got to talk about. One being the PSA announcement. So PSA has come out and officially announced what their plans are moving forward, how the slab is going to look, how the label is going to look. They're going to be at San Diego, it sounds like. It sounds like they're going to be offering, I don't know if it's, I doubt it's going to, as of right now, they've said anything about on-site grading, but they will be offering drop-off at San Diego. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear about some type of on-site grading thing in the future. That's just something maybe a little birdie has put in my ear. So we'll see about that at San Diego. A lot of people said, they wouldn't be able to do it because they're so far from the East Coast. It was easy for CGC to do it at Baltimore and at MegaCon because they're in Florida. Well, I think PSA has
they're in Long Beach.
They're in Long Beach. So and they're also Santa Ana or Santa Clara or something like that. So
yeah,
they're going to be in their home state for that. So it'd be very interesting to see if they could pull something off there. But here are some of the biggest things that I want to talk about. One, big shout out to PSA for listening to the fan base. And if you guys don't know what I mean, when we first started talking about PSA, there was a lot of pushback on Where is it? Let's see here. There was a lot of pushback on the look of the comic label. Let me bring this up. Comic.
Yeah, you got to go back to San Diego last year when they let us touch it and hold it.
So you can see that this looks like it does not look good. The label, when it first got announced, it looked a lot like the card label. A lot of comic guys were like, I don't like that. It looks like it's just a big card. The size of the slab was tremendous. I mean, it was heavier than a PGX slab on a wet day, right? It was like a 2-pound slab. And those two things were the biggest pushback on everything that we saw with PSA. Well, ladies and gentlemen, unlike a lot of people in the comic industry, they listened. The disconnect isn't as heavy, and they decided to bring down the size of the slab to basically meet standards that CGC has had throughout the years. So it's going to be as big as this and match the standards of the CGC slab. And they've changed the look of the label. Now they still have the red label, but the numbers are big and in the corner, which is very nice. And I think they had to obviously keep the red label because of the card bros that are jumping over into this collecting world of comics. That brings in the card bros even more. This is a big deal, and it's not only a big deal, it's a huge deal when you see this. PSA 10 gold label comics. They're not going to do the 9.9s, which is very interesting. I like that. I don't think there's a reason for a 9.9. They're just going to keep the 2-point increments moving up, which is smart to me. But this brings up a lot of questions, and I can't wait to hear from you guys what you guys think about this.
Should I? Well, let me throw a disclaimer out. As somebody who has quite fundamental differences with CGC and hasn't used them since 2013, and was probably the biggest fanboy for CBCS until late last year, early this year, when I announced I won't be using them anymore. Right before this announcement came, I got invited to be one of the retailers that got to participate in the early launch of this. So I'll let you guys talk, and then I'll give my opinion. But my opinion is slightly solicited.
Yeah, I think in the retail world, this news isn't as big as you just heard Brian say, right? I think what's going to happen here is grading is a branding thing. And we've always said that how does CBCS make their brand worth the same amount of money as CGC books in the same grade? It just never happened. And I think that's what people are then look at this. So then say, with all these changes of the covers and cool, awesome, and we did the bells and whistles, and now we're doing this, am I going to get value by sending them my books? And that's going to be the end game for this, is turn around and how close is my value to CGC, or is it better?
Well, here's the problem with that I think is going to be an issue. When you talk about cost to get a book graded, what is it, $18 for dealers to get a CGC modern book graded, right? $30 is what you're going to pay at PSA. Almost double what a retailer would pay.
Well, and I'll counter that, Brian, that PSA does a ton of sales every month for their collectors club. So a standard card grading costs around $25. Am I wrong, Brian? For PSA?
I don't think it's that much, is it?
Well, when they have the sales are at the $19 level.
Let's take a look.
Don't you have to have a membership?
There you go. Collectors
that's
Club
bulk.
only. Yeah, $18.99.
Value tier is $24.99.
Yeah. Okay. I get that, but let's be honest. No, I don't think there's very few people that are just gonna send in retailer wise. I'm not talking about like me or like any collector.
But we're talking about John Q. Public also, because PSA does 1 million cards a month. Okay. And I think CGC does 1 million comics a year. That's kind of where I'm talking, you know, and you said it, the card bros. The card bros are heavily invested in cards, and they are paying $24.99 or the $18.99. But if you actually, can you pull up PSA's when they have their monthly discount?
Oh, their deals, it changes.
It changes every month.
And
sometimes they'll be like, hey, baseball cards from 1970s are, you know, $15 a card, and it might take you twice as long to get it graded.
$17.99 right now for vintage grading. So anything from 60 to 89 is $17 or $18 a card.
So they're going to have the same discount tiers eventually for comic books in this as well, and you just have to wait till those discounts if you don't think that price is where you want to be. As well, I just think there's an entire new market for PSA to have these, and this is why I've invested in them. That's why I'm doing the submissions I'm doing with them, because I just feel that there's a different market that doesn't trust CGC and definitely doesn't trust CBCS. If they don't trust Beckett to grade their cards, they're not going to trust CBCS to grade their comics. I think the magazines is a total game changer. That actually looked hilarious, Emmett. Looked like you were crawling up from the primordial ooze.
That's what I felt like.
Oh,
it disappeared.
So yes, so you have that there. So that's my first submission to PSA.
So this is my take on it. Everybody knows one of the reasons why my YouTube channel took off is because my hatred for grading. What this business has done is convinced us that they give us something that they don't. Right? Everybody that I get notes on this all the time on all my videos. I want my book protected. They don't guarantee that. Nobody does. I want my grade that everybody knows what my grade. They don't guarantee the grade. They guarantee one thing: authenticity. That is it. Now, the other thing is how often do you rebag and board your comics?
Not enough.
Every 5 to 7 years.
You're supposed
to. That's a bag and a board. What are these 10 and 20? What's the comic inside of these 10 and 20-year-old plastic coffins? What are they going to be like in 20, 25 years? With all the off-gassing of the acid. They're not doing anything. They no longer put the archival paper in, right?
No.
We know that they took those out. So what are these books going to be like? They're going to be covers. So all the paper on the inside will be brittle, dry, and falling apart. There's the quality control is not there. You know, these plastic coffins are like $1.18. You can buy them off Alibaba and put them in yourself if that's you want them. They've convinced they have snookered everybody.
I think it's an immense new opportunity to get to customer bases that we do not have access to right now. And those card bros, they absolutely trust PSA to a degree that I
100%.
don't understand.
100%. I agree with you on all those factors. That you'll make tons of money selling them.
Yep.
People make tons of money selling CGC. I just think it's choking the golden goose. You know, at some point when people down the road or be like, they're bringing their 9/8 to finally they passed away and their kids are trying to sell them and guys are shaking them and the pieces of the comic are falling into the bottom.
Well, I mean, that happens with the toys too, though. Emmett.
Yeah.
That big issue that I shared with you, Brian, where the guy bought the Storm Shadow or Snake Eyes, and he got it from Golden Auctions, and the rubber band had snapped inside of a carded action figure
Yeah.
that was
Oh,
graded,
absolutely can do.
AFA 90.
Yeah.
No,
Yep.
it's one of these. It's an opportunity that I stopped grading with CBCS, and here comes an opportunity for me to put some of the and Brian, I think you could probably play that video that I sent you. It's only like 1:40, just kind of a quick flip through of the kind of stuff that I'm sending off.
I don't think there is a video that you sent me.
Yeah, they're up in the chat. I'll send it again if you want.
Yeah, this is the link you sent me right here.
No. One
this
of my
page
videos.
turners?
Here, I'll send that one. One of the other things that I'm really interested to see, and for me, it's money. And, and Hood's in the chat here. Hood pressed about half of these, and they came back not 9.8 pre-screen from CBCS. And I'm like, dude, some of these are just cherry. And so these are the kind of books that I think are the kind of books that PSA customers will want down the line.
Yeah, so let's be very clear here. The PSA move is 100% based on the card bros coming into the comic industry that have made card collecting such a big play in the last couple of years. I mean, we've got there's more people collecting cards than ever before now, right? I mean, you've got sports players, major league sports players who are trading, bats, game used jerseys for their 1-of-1s and their 1-of-5s and their rare cards. They're searching them out. That you've got so many people that are excited into opening cards, but here's the thing: you lose a lot of the excitement with comics because you're not opening a pack, right? So that loses some of the excitement to me. So I don't know if it's going to grab everybody, but to me, I'm going to show you guys why I think that this is one of the biggest plays moving forward.
That's the repeat now, Brian. You can take it off if you want.
This is the biggest play. Why this is the biggest play moving forward. Shout out to Rob, Northeast Ohio Sports Cards, Swaggle House. They've been doing a great job talking about the whole PSA play. I was lucky enough to jump on and shoot the shit with them on one of Swag's latest show. And one of the things that they brought up was this Courtyard IO company. This is going to blow everybody away. It could change things immensely. And this is very interesting to me. So people are saying, what does this have to do with comics? Well, let me explain what Courtyard IO is real quick. So say one of the things that's dominating the sports card or the trading card world is these repacks, right? Retailers are buying so much product to put in quote unquote repacks that it's helping save the industry. And you say, well, how is that the case? Well, you have a lot of these new online retailers, Whatnot people, eBay Live people, Fanatics Live, and you can only open so much product. There's not enough unopened product out there to open. What they've done is they've started taking hits and creating these repacks, right? You get one card per pack, and it's graded usually, and it can be a win, it can be a loss. And it is just huge in the card world right now. Well, this company, Courtyard IO, decided, okay, we're going to get into it. And for example, you have these quote unquote vending machines, and you can go onto their website and you can say, okay, what do I want to buy in today? Which vending machines do I want to buy out? Okay, let's buy a Pokemon Master Pack. It's $100, okay? And I can just say, okay, I want to buy one. Log in to buy. I pay $100 for it. A little video pops up. It says, this is what you've won. It shows the card you've won, right? It could be like one of these, right? This guy just won this 5 minutes ago, okay? And it says, okay, you've won this. Oh, that's something that I already have. I don't want to keep that card. Well, guess what? Courtyard IO will automatically pay 90% of fair market value to immediately towards you to buy another one, okay? They have vaults. Everything is digital. They have the vaults. You can say, okay, I want my card sent to me. You can keep it in the vaults there also. And it's just, it's getting into the whole gambling thing of cards where, okay, I have a chance to pull something big. You say, what are your chances to pull something big? Well, check this out. They have expected odds on all of these. So for example, this pack, it's $100 for a pack. You have a 23, 30, 31, a 32%
30%.
chance to get your money back or more, right? You have a 70% chance to get your money back or less. Okay, a 50% chance to lose $25 to $50. And the fact that if you buy something and it's not what you want, or you lose and it's immediately a 90% buyback, guess what? That just press the button to buy again. Press the button to buy again. Press the button to buy again. Oh, I just hit. Okay, now I have a little extra money. Give me 2 this time. I'm going to put 2 on this spin. I'm going to put $3 on the spin, right? It just keeps on doing that. And it's very interesting. This company is making $20 to $50 million a month doing this right now. 20 to 50
It's
million.
a casino.
Yeah,
dollars a month.
I hope they have a good lawyer there, because there is something wrong with what you just showed, and I'm not going to get into
At the bottom,
it.
does it have the 1-800 number to Gamblers Anonymous?
Well, here's
No.
the thing, you guys. Guess what? You think that's crazy? Look at this. Guess who just partnered with CGC? Comic vending machines are coming, and it's going to be the same way. 5 grails in the new comic book vending machine. These are all books that you can pull out of the new comic grail vending machine. Now, here's something that's important. I asked Rob, I said, Rob, is this something that is causing problems in the card world? And I said, what do retailers and dealers think about it? I go, they hate this? He goes, no, they love it. And I go, why? He goes, I was recently at a card show, a big card show, and he goes, 70% of the sales of dealers at the card show were repack buyers coming in and buying product. They're buying
80
product
cents on the dollar.
hand over fist for a lot of money. And there's very few, arguing about what the price is, this and that. And retailers love it because they can get rid of their product very easily. Is that going to happen in the comic world, right? They're only doing graded comics. They can only do graded. But is that something that we're going to see where retailers love this because they're selling their raw books or their graded slabs? Now, here's what's very interesting about this. We watched a video the other day, or I sent these guys a video the other day. We're going to try and bring them on. A guy talking about what it's like being a comic retailer for the last year. And one of the things he said is that retailers hate buying slabs. They hate it, right? Because you don't get the value, resale value that you could get normally on slabs. Because there's this already market for the slabs where you can't negotiate on grade, and it's just harder to sell slabs, to make money off of slabs than it is making money off of raw books, and which is very interesting. This could change that, right? Because now you have all these repackers that are going to be wanting only slabs. And so it could make the slab market a little bit easier for retailers. Now, I don't know if that's the case. This is just what I've been hearing from retailers. We've got 3 retailers on the platform on the show right now. I'd love to know what you guys think about this whole Courtyard IO play.
Yeah, I would like to see 12 months of numbers And I would also like them to explain the percentages and how that is adjusted daily. Because if a high book is pulled, those percentages should change immediately. Because your odds are then changed because that big book is gone. So I think this is something 6 months, 12 months of numbers. And then that tells you if you want to do something like this. Getting rid of bad product that hasn't sold, there's a lot of ways to do that. This is just another platform that some people will try and they'll do very well with, and others will say this isn't just for me. But I think what we have to do is we have to be very careful when we look at platforms that haven't been tested long enough.
So here's the crazy thing, right? The Courtyard.io website, this is so smart. They put just pulled a minute ago. Somebody bought a football pack and pulled this card a minute ago, right? And you can immediately put it up for sale because they have a marketplace. This one isn't available. It hasn't put it up for sale yet, but you can easily take that card and put it up for sale on the marketplace. Also, if you don't want to have them buy back, right? Somebody paid $25 for this pack, or is this a sale history, or $50 for this pack, and they immediately sold it. So here's the thing, right? Here we go. A minute ago, this buyer right here, Machiavelli, bought this pack for $50. He pulled this card, and 2 minutes and 2 minutes later, he sold it back for $25 for half the price. Immediately sold it back. Nope, I don't want that. Sell it back. Give me $25 on that money back.
I mean, here's the thing. It's absolutely gambling.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
However, when
Which
you
gambling
lose...
is very, very regulated.
Yes.
Very.
Yes.
There is this is the Wild West with this. They're like, sure, 50% of the time you're going to get the best stuff. Who's watching that?
Right.
We're taking them on their word.
Well,
Yeah.
but what I was saying is at
Go ahead,
least
Dennis.
if you bet the Mets tonight and the Mets win, you're going to win money. If you bet the Mets and the Mets lose, you lose all of what you bet. This is just a way. This is kind of like a parlay. You know, if you bet $100 on something and they come in second rather than first on the thing, and you get partial. You know, I don't know how gambling works. I do it in real life, not in fake life, you know.
So it says here for transparency, having all details about every transaction recorded on chain, because it's all on the blockchain, increases the level of transparency around previous ownership and pricing of collectibles. Having reliable provenance is something collectors value, and with the blockchain, they can easily access all past owners and activity from a particular collectible. Let's see here. Does it say anything about like giving what's the value of the card? You know what I mean? I'm trying to look for that.
How are they?
Yeah, I would just say
value?
this is fair market value. I think this is something we look back at next quarter and we see where they're at. I think this is for a specific retailer who would be doing this. The common retailer isn't going to be investing in something like this.
Correct.
This is for the comic bros.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm
flippers.
saying. Yeah.
But there's a thing. There's a lot of money that you're leaving on the table by not servicing that audience. And that's why I'm going to participate in this PSA launch.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, this is going to be a big deal moving forward, I think. We'll keep an eye on it. So they already have a partnership with PSA on the card side. Now they have a partnership with CGC.
And here's the thing, and that's because PSA, their preferred company for their grading, isn't doing comics yet. Who's to say that this CGC deal will last forever when PSA's comics start coming out?
Mm-hmm.
And those gold labels are totally going to attract the dude bros, the new Jack Flippers.
Oh yeah, major. Where are those labels? Let me go back to those labels because those labels are the gold label is going 100% Dennis. Yeah, no doubt about it. So, and
the only reason we're so locked into those blue labels for CGC, CBCS, PGX is because that's what the industry has given us.
Yes.
I think it's going to take a year for this red label to be adopted.
Yeah,
Almost,
exactly.
almost if not more than the blue labels.
They're going to have to put books through Heritage and then buy them for $1 million.
Right.
And
Well, the best example is you can,
And I'm the jaded one.
yeah, you can go buy a car on the lot because you're like, this is awesome. I've never seen this car before. And the second you buy the car, guess what car you start seeing all the time is the car you're driving. And that's exactly how it works. If you become repetitive and you come out and you see your car every morning, then you start recognizing that car. And so I think this is the same thing here. It's going to take a while for them to get their branding and their marketing done so that people, when they see that red, understand it's PSA. And right now, they're not even worried about that part. This is like the most minor thing they're worried about. Right now, it's getting retailers to buy in to promote that brand.
Yep.
the government's regulatory regulatory bureaus are non-existent anymore. Like all the things that are going on that is blatantly not fair market capitalism is going on, and the people that are cheering it are all the people who say they're fair market people. They're free market capitalists. They're not.
Right.
They're not. There's no way to say that you're pushing a button on a computer and they're saying it's random. There's no proof of that. There's no license that says that it has to be checked by a third party. There's all these things that go into casino gambling. I know businesses, like little local businesses, that are still on Facebook doing raffles. Raffles are illegal for a business. That's for nonprofit. There's so much garbage going on in all industries. It's like the Wild West again. And, I guess everybody's I'll just get the money while I can.
The government doesn't get involved until somebody gets very visibly screwed.
Yeah. If you don't think somebody's like 50 grand in debt playing these IO machines already, you're mistaken.
Yeah, but
there's someone who's lost their car and their house.
2 months ago, we all talked about the jackass who went $60,000 in debt buying Pokemon so he could sell it on Whatnot.
Yeah.
We talked about the couple at the divorce hearing that were splitting up their Beanie Baby collection. Right. We talk about Funko Pops being completely, worthless, and we buy them for $1, $2 and flip them for $5. People invested huge money in all of that, but nobody cares when that bubble crashes. But it's when the entire housing market bubble crashes that people care.
Right. Yeah. So I think this is something that we'll look at again and see where it's at next quarter, and see the participation in it. People, are spending a lot of money live streaming. Now they then go over and spend money here. That splits their spendability money. And we'll see how it works in the end. Also, how do you continue to keep on getting that type of product graded and nonstop? So there's a lot of things to look at. It's brand new. We'll see where it works.
They're counting on the sellbacks.
Right.
They're counting probably, so you said it was 32% you get your money back or better. So they're counting on that 65 to 70% selling back, that they can just put it right back in the machine, because it's not a real machine, right?
Yeah.
It's a AI machine.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like I've always said, on those video poker, online poker rooms, how hard is it for when the money is up there for the computer to drop the wrong card on you to make you lose everything?
Oh, it could. Yeah,
it could, but it's they claim it's regulated, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But at least when you're going into a casino, you really know you're gambling, right?
Yeah.
There's the 1-800 numbers on all the machines. It's, do you think you have a gambling problem?
Well, here's the other thing, you guys. Gambling is okay nowadays. You know,
Yeah.
listen, when you've got sports shows, have a little thing in the corner that gives you the odds of the next pitch that you can
FanDuel,
bet on versus
yeah.
FanDuel, like
Absolutely.
gambling is okay in our
But they're
world right
regulated.
now. Yes.
You know, I was watching a breakdown of one of my favorite movies, The Last Boy Scout, with Bruce Willis and Damon Wayans. And the whole plot of that movie is California wanted to legalize sports gambling. And they were willing to kill to make legalized sports gambling. And really all they had to do was just wait and push some more money around, and it would happen worldwide.
It's
And
sport.
what's great about that is they talked about the injury report in that movie, which is a great part of gambling.
It is
the injury report and the date that it actually comes out.
Yeah,
and guess
so if
what,
you have
you
prior
guys?
knowledge to an injury.
Yeah.
And guess
then-
what? How
then
do you
you
get
can-
around the injury report, you guys? Spider-Man's not going to tear an ACL.
That's right.
that literally that was Gary Vaynerchuk's big push to investing in comic books at COVID time. He was like, these guys aren't going to break their arm. Spider-Man's not going to
Beat
break
their
his
wives
arm.
or take steroids.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, my 12-year-old self was crushed when my entire page of Goodens and strawberries were wrecked by DUIs and cocaine abuse.
Yeah. Yes. All because of Keith Hernandez. All right. Next, the other interesting thing, CGC is announced, or I don't know if it's announced or if they're hiding it. Is they put this out?
It's one of the coolest
Wait, hold
things
on
I've
here.
ever seen.
Hold on here. There we go.
Hey, I think I see Jim over there. You guys have been asking about DC labels for a while, and I'm gonna ask him when they're coming. I see him. All right, let's ask him. Hey, Jim, I want to ask you about the DC labels. Jim, when are those DC labels coming? Jim, what labels are they? When are we gonna get them? Jim, please, don't you run away.
So according to them, DC labels are coming, and it was just a matter of time. You know, people love those labels. They look pretty sweet too. I gotta admit, when you see a Secret Wars #8 with that black suit Spider-Man on the label, it makes me go, man, I wish I had one of those. So it works. It works, and it's definitely going to help them. So we'll see if in San Diego
Now,
this is their push.
Are they licensing? Now, are they giving them free use, or are they licensing?
It's got to be a license. That's why Jim's, there to be a part of this little shill.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've always agreed with Steve Borak. You're buying the book. The label is not part of the book. That's just an upsell, like, custom license plates or whatever.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Another quick announcement that I thought was very interesting that we are definitely going to talk about when it rolls around. Sworn Fest 2026 has been announced January 30th, 31st, and February 1st here in Arizona. They're starting to announce a lot of their people that are going to be there, a lot of artists and stuff. So shout out to Sworn Nation and all the Coffin Comic fans out there that are going to be heading to my neck of the woods in the end of or the beginning of the year. So I'm really looking forward to this. And that's one of the things that I do want to bring up. I was able to go to Phoenix Fan Fusion last weekend. I didn't talk about it a lot, but I did spend some time and talk with Brian and Fran, Coffin Comics, two amazing people in the comics industry that are doing amazing things. And one of the things that I did talk about with them is how important their fan grouping is, and also how important it is that they've created their own crowdfunding venture and coffin launch. And there are very few people that are doing what the Politos are doing in the comic industry right now. So big shout out to them, and I can't wait to see moving forward, where they go. There is a lot of, the sky is falling in the comic industry, but there's also a lot of people out there that are, instead of saying, the sky is falling, they're going, okay, I'm gonna pivot, I'm gonna change it up, I'm gonna do what I need to do to continue to grow my fan base and give them what they want, and nobody does it better than the Politos. So.
Right. And keep in mind, Swarmfest is going to a bigger venue, which is awesome. And it's something that, it's kind of weird. You walk in and everybody's wearing black. So if you walk in, you've never been to one and you're wearing red, you just stick out. And they're
that's why it has to be in January in Arizona.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can wear a leather jacket.
Yeah. And so it's just something that if you are a Coffin Comics fan, a Lady Death fan, a Polito fan, a Chaos fan, it doesn't matter. It is a great family. It's a great culture. It's a great tradition. There are more success stories than there are companies that aren't doing well in the comic book industry right now. And so our job is to look at something like this and say, okay, Swarmfest is coming, but it's better than last year. And that's what we want to look at, is how does something evolve over time?
Yep. Amen. So,
Hey,
all right.
I know we didn't have it on the agenda, but I want to bring up a topic that apparently just got me kicked off of one of the retailer forums.
Oh, wonderful.
Really? Never.
Like, I've been kicked off of better forums than yours. But they're all bitching and moaning that, I don't know. We talked about the Golden Biscuit, Crypto Adventure Comics 210. Did you hear about all the controversy on that one, Brian?
About how people are getting things saying they didn't win, right?
Well, the
No,
first
it's not
prize
that.
is a golden ticket to get you into the Superman
Yep.
premiere.
Yep.
The second place prize, or the booby prize, is a free 1-month subscription to DC Comics Online that has a recurring
Payment.
payment that
Monthly
you
payment.
sign up for when you go into this.
You got to give
And-
your credit card with the free.
Yes.
Right.
And
1 month free trial.
one retailer has already said that somebody has literally dropped his entire pull because of it.
What? That doesn't make sense.
No,
Well-
he just was like, this is an opportunity for me to read free comics, and I'm going to take it, and I'm not.
Okay,
I
I
don't need to
get
buy
what
physical
I
anymore.
see it. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't even think it's that. I think it's more the data mining that is really.
it absolutely is.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
off the
that's-
back of the retailers. They put this gorgeous carrot out there for all the retailers to bite on, and they didn't. The retailers just jumped in and said, "Yep, oh, absolutely, absolutely." And even when they discover that there's this hook in the carrot that's going to take them away from the retailer, they still sell them. This is a Boston
buy
Tea
any.
moment. This is a Boston Tea Party moment,
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised about this. I think, when you get into that world about data mining, it goes by, 50,000 emails. Well, 50,000 emails in that world is worth millions of dollars. Imagine 50,000 emails from a specific genre, what the value is.
Yep.
Because now if you're DC, you're saying, listen, we have 50,000 people, 100,000 people that are now signed up. We get their info.
Yep.
And their info is worth more to us than anything else. Just the meta alone on this is going to be amazing. So how does a store combat this? Number one, they better continue to give great customer service and not even be talking to a customer about this.
Real quick.
Would you guys, if you guys bought this, would you leave it on your shelf after you found out about this?
Sure. I don't care about that. What I care about is, in my personal thing, that becomes how confident are you selling your customer base and retaining them? With everything that has happened over the last 20 years, This is a very, very minor thing that is time stamped. It's not like they'll then be doing it next month and then be doing it next month. Listen, they got their hands in the cookie jar slapped by all these retailers, and the retailers are then bitch because that's what we do the best about is bitching, and not selling comics is secondary. And so in this case, I think this is a story that lasts for about another 10 minutes in the comic book world, and then it just disappears, because here's what's going to happen. DC won't know what to do with those emails at the end of the day. Right. They'll sell some subs here, there. People will start canceling their credit cards. We're right back to where we were.
Real quick, I want to give a big shout out and a lot of love and support to Alex Lodermeyer, who recently lost his father. And that's a bummer, man. And we got a lot of love and support for our community over here, our community members. And Alex is a big time community member over here. And we appreciate him. And we want to send a lot of thoughts and prayers out to him and his family going through these rough times.
For
so
sure.
Much love, Alex.
So very good. And I mean, it's very hard for me to follow what Brian just said. But Dennis, I'm guessing you're the opposite.
Of what?
Of what I just said.
Here's the thing. I don't respect anybody who uses a predatory practice to try and steal our customers. It should be our job to sell our customers comic books from the people who sell it. When you cross that line that what we are ordering from you is not good enough, that you need to figure out a way. There's plenty of ways for them to reach those customers. Put a giant code at the end of the movie and 100 million people are going to see that code all the live long day. Pass out a flyer at the movie theaters. Make a free comic book at the movie theaters and hand them out like they did with The Punisher and with all these others. But the second you try to Trojan horse that code into a store without telling the retailer that that's what you're doing, I'm sorry, that's a stray dog that bites you, and you got to put that stray dog down.
So are you saying if they told the retailer first, hey, by the way, we have this great offer in this new comic book coming out, you would be fine with it?
Yeah, but the thing is if that was somebody had that idea that to piggyback this second place prize is what they're calling it, the consolation prize for not getting the golden biscuit. Okay. Somebody put that in there. That person should have also said in that solicit that everyone will be a winner. If you don't win it, you're still going to get a free 1-month subscription to DC online. Why wouldn't you put that in the solicitation if that was the big hook that you were putting out there? Because they knew retailers are going to be like, whoa, what's this online thing that you're trying to put in my store? Because that's what we've always done. And I fought it vigorously when it happened. I was told I was crazy for that. Why won't they give out the digital numbers? Because they're more than what we think they are. They won't tell us what those numbers are. That's fine. You could disagree all you like.
Yeah. Well, I would say those numbers, if you're going to show me those numbers, then I want to know how many of comic book store buyers and people that don't go to comic book stores. That's Absolutely. Where the numbers, that would be very interesting, because our job is to look at those numbers from non-comic book store owners and how do we get those comic book buyers back to us. The door
never swings the other way, Emmett.
I agree with you there, 100%. It never comes back our way.
Right.
But I don't
There's
think
no
there
comic
are
shop locator on the digital comic platform.
Right. But they're also all bootleggable, and it's just like Napster. Comic books very few people are paying for subscriptions to read comic books online.
Well, I think that's a cultural thing. If you've been collecting 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, you want to go in for that 5-10 minutes and talk to your store owner, let him know that you're supporting him, hey, are you going to see the new Superman movie? Whatever it is, okay, I'm going back to my day. I think that's very important when it comes to the experience part of it. I would be very interested in even what Dennis said on how many retailers would say, okay, now you told me, I'm then go ahead and buy this anyways. And I still think that if you're confident with your customer base, you have to look at what your percentages that you're getting versus the percentages that you're losing, and it probably equals out.
Amen.
Yep. So I want to talk about the IDW thing.
You don't have to worry about them. They got enough money to go for the next year, Jesse.
Yep.
I did not hear this.
Yeah. This amazing, Brian? I sent you that story. It's in the notes above. It should be right around where the massive notes are in there. This is crazy to think that whoever put this out in their marketing division, the owner the president walk in and say, hey, can I talk to you outside real fast? Oh, by the way, can you grab your car keys and your box, please? Because we'll then walk outside. We'll then talk about this. I want to thank you for your service. You have a good day. We'll get your final check to you tomorrow. This is probably one of the worst headers I have seen from a company in freaking history. When Brian finds it, it's right above where there you go.
This right here?
Yeah. Go to the top, read the header.
IDW Publishing states they will definitely be around for another year.
Yeah.
Mission. I imagine a mission accomplished banner behind them when they said this.
I don't get this. Well, this is not a necessary. The only thing I could think of is they want their name in the headlines, and for them to be in the headlines, they had to say, okay, let's say this. Let's make people read this article.
Well, here's the other funny thing is that they've got their old logo with this in front of it. When I first saw this, I was like, oh, good. IDW is changing back they're changing their shitty logo, right?
They need to go back to the light bulb.
This is the worst logo in comic books right here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just terrible.
That's some Manhattan firm or some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They probably spent the millions of dollars they got from COVID on that. Jesus. I mean, what do they have
they're
left?
Rehashing like Lock and Key and 30 Days of Night.
Right. That's what I'm looking here. They're stating everything they have in the past, what they used to have the licenses for, and then there's nothing that says we have 1 year and we have the greatest lineup that we've ever had. Here it is. Yeah. Nothing.
Is there any? There's zero mention of what's coming.
Right. That's what's missing from this.
Yeah.
I feel like this industry makes me so mad sometimes. I feel like Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. Tell me, Lieutenant Caffey, that you are risking these soldiers' lives on more than just we used to publish Star Wars.
Yeah.
And we have a year to go. IDW, tell me you have more for this industry, more for the people who sell new books and are waiting for you than we used to publish 30 Days a Night, a movie that never got a sequel.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the point is we've waited and waited for you to either declare bankruptcy or do XYZ. And instead of saying this is what we had planned for the last 2 quarters of the year, this is what you decide to say. And I just think it's number one, it's a distraction to reality. Mm-hmm. 1 more year. Does that mean this year? Does that mean to January 1st? What does that
Yeah,
mean?
is that fiscal year? Is that
Yeah. Yeah. What is your
365 days from this announcement? What?
Right. Exactly. And
it sounds like a goal. It sounds like it's something they're trying to get to.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
We only have to do this one more fucking year. That's it.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So it just goes to show that some companies who just can't get out of the rut the last 5, 6, 7 years continues to do stuff that does not give people the confidence to invest in them, whether it be a retailer, whether it be someone who's looking to do exclusives, or someone who's has a great idea. You know, if I have a great idea and my series is I'm planning 12 issues in this series, I ain't going to IDW with this idea, no matter how good it is.
Yep. Well, and it's to me, it's even worse than that. You're literally saying, "Hey, remember us? Give us a chance at nothing that we want to have to tell you about."
Right.
Yeah, imagine if you have a #1 coming out next month at IDW, and they don't even mention you. It's like within a month, we got a new book coming out.
Brian, can you pull up cover price and see what IDW has coming out over the next month or two?
Actually, I don't think it's.
I don't think I can. Yeah.
Okay.
Straight from IDW. Yeah. Yeah, they won't let me do that. I mean,
okay. But what I'm saying is you know, Jesse's right. That title is absolute crap. But if there was some meat in, you know, in the thing, then we could forgive that horrible thing. It's like, hey, this is going to be IDW's best year, and we will definitely be here by the end of it. You know, or something like that is better than this.
Definitely. And the other great, now let's go to something great, right?
Trolls Comics says IDW is getting Twilight Zone, but told me the movie is off limits to do an exclusive. What were you trying to do, a Vic Morrow exclusive there? Troll Comics.
Yeah. Well, I just love the way they wrote it, right?
Yeah.
It's like Twilight Zone and Off Limits. That's two different shows from the,
Outer Limits,
60s. Or Outer Limits, that's right. Outer Limits, yeah. But yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of the good stuff. But the good thing, I think the good news is what Ignition is doing. Ignition is really launching, and they are going to be on fire. This is the way to promote versus what we just saw from IDW.
Yeah. So Ignition put out a little start sequence for their upcoming reveals for San Diego. They're going to be, they've got a standalone pop-up experience down in the Gas Lamp, which will be interesting. And they've got a lot of announcements coming. They've been doing, Philip and the crew over there has been doing a great job, and they're one of the publishers that we're going to root for in a big way. I hope to hear more from them in the
Well, tell
future.
about the other one that you're excited for, Brian.
What's that?
The new Blaylock Massive.
Oh yes, yeah. Shout out to Josh Blaylock.
That's the way you launch.
Yeah, Josh Blaylock, who's of course one of my favorite creators, and of course owns Devil's Due Publishing, and
of course a guest of this show.
Yep. He has, in my opinion, put his stamp on the G.I. Joe brand many years ago through the Image Devil's Due G.I. Joe stuff that he did with Tim Seeley. And of course he has that new series that he put out called The Disavowed. Well, shout out to him and Massive Publishing through the Massive Pilot distribution program that Massive is doing. Disavowed will be heading to comic shops.
So is that just photoshopped on there, or does all the imprints that go through Massive going to have the name Massive on what they're publishing?
That's a great question. I don't know. It says here, Massive Publishing is proud to announce the launch of its brand new initiative, the Massive Pilot Program, a creator-first platform designed to help comic book creators launch new series by combining the power of crowdfunding with Massive's publishing infrastructure. The pilot program offers fans and collectors a unique opportunity to support and shape the future of independent comics. Each pilot campaign features a high-end early release version of the series debut, which will be produced in limited quantities for collectability. Very cool. I like that. And it doesn't take away from their Kickstarter campaign that might be going on at the same time. It just wets their beak a little bit, right? These premium editions will feature upgraded paper stock, specialty covers, exclusive content, and collectible treatments curated specifically for campaign backers who are investing in the future of the series. Quote, our goal is to build a bridge between creator ideas and reader support, says Michael Colero, CEO of Massive Publishing. With the pilot program, fans aren't just buying a comic, they're part of launching it. I think that's all great. I think that's excellent. So
it's part of what you've been saying, Brian. It's a different way to distribute comics. You have to look beyond this business model.
Yes. And I think here's the other thing. I got to give credit to Michael again. I think that he's really listening not just collectors and readers and comic fans, but also people in the industry that are he's listening to us. He's listening to shows that are talking about it, and he wants to do right on comic fans and what comic people like. We had him on here. He Massive has taken a big hit over the years of how they first tried to jump into the industry, and I don't think it was their fault. I don't think it was anybody's fault. I was thinking it's just the way that kind of things happened with the timing of everything. But over the last couple months, they've showed real interest in making pivots and changes to their brand and how they do things that are better for the comic book industry and the comic book collector/buyer.
Right. But I think the biggest thing, even when you say that, is they're staying in the news. And that's the biggest thing. If you stay in the news once a week, then you are going to, at some point, learn from your mistakes, and you're going to capitalize on your pluses, and that's how you mature in business. And I think that's what you're seeing as well. I think the notion that they are representing other people other than themselves is a growth thing for them. And the fact that you do have Phil Bull, you have Panelfly, you have other companies out there that are saying, listen, you might do that, but this is what we do. So it makes them step up their game a little bit more.
This brings me to another quick little question that I just want to ask. Do you guys think that now, the day and age of social media, how easy it is to reach out to retailers to know kind of what's made in how the sausage is made, everything's out more in the open. Do you think that when deals like this are made, that these companies or these people that are making the deals, they actually go and research the brand that what they're associating their brand with? Does that make sense how I'm saying that? So for instance, I saw a couple recent deals lately where you've got new sponsors of this brand and new sponsors of that brand. And it made me go, are you researching who you're putting your brand next to?
Hitching your cart to?
Yeah. And I feel like that's...
I think there's a lot of desperation in comics, and I don't think people do. If they have the opportunity to make the book they want to make and retain their IP, I think they're just going to go on their own merit and hope that the shit doesn't splatter.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think it's that. I think there's what I look at when I'm partnering up, when I look at allies, I'm looking at their integrity levels is one of the first things, what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do. I also want to know how they are socially. How do they speak as a brand, and how do they speak as a brand with consideration of their consumer? So if I go to a page, like when you get a friend's request and you go through and you look, and the first 10 posts are politics. Guess what? I'm not friending you, dude.
Right.
You want me to be in business with you, but you're only talking politics. That ain't working for me. So the other thing is lack of allies. When you do look at partnerships, you sometimes look and you say, listen, that person doesn't have any allies, and the people that he's going to has very small allies. So that's why they're coming together.
Brian, what did I say to you before San Diego last year? This industry is playing a giant game of musical chairs, and I still hear the music playing, but I see a lot of scrambling looking for a chair right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, it's like, what quality of books, when you go to have your book published, what was some of the other stuff they put out? And if it's like not very well vetted, or, it's hard. But if you want to get your book out and somebody's going, hey, it's just going to cost you $500, come right here.
Emmett, you said something, I think it was like 2 or 3 months ago. It was one of your things, and we're like, of course, I'm Mr. Negative Nancy, so take it to heart. But you said something that was really good. And you're like, I'm tired of talking about all of the negativity. I want to start talking about all the stores that are starting.
Right.
And you listed out, I think, 3 different new stores that you had talked to the owners of. And Brian, of course, I think last week you said you've got a lineup of 3 new stores.
Yeah, we're going to try and bring on Stephen Fuentes from Most Wanted Comics next week. We've got, we want to bring on Kevin from Collector's Choice Comics. We're trying to bring on Lance from High Score Comics. Like, there's a lot of these new up and coming comic stores
Let me segoo. We have one really new comic book store owner right next to you there. And a guy who just signed the lease and got the keys today to his new store as well.
Well, not only is Jesse sitting in a brand new store there, he's getting ready for a grand opening.
Huge grand opening.
That's going to include this guy, it sounds like. So,
yeah, I think it was a great thing having dinner with him and him asking me about the store and then saying, I'd like to come there and do your grand opening, right? And I think our job is to create great relationships. You're talking about people partnering up. Well, that's what it's about. It's creating 100%. Relationships, right, with people that you want to be successful with. This is the exclusive for the store. This is Mark Spears. These are then be $100 each. There's only 100 copies. He's technically keeping 10, so there'll be 90 copies. It can only be bought at the store. This is an amazing, amazing book. And always when you're talking about allies, you want to go back with the people that you've been in the trenches with for a while. And so my other 2 exclusives obviously are then be the Do You Poo, which is Murat Michaels.
Yep.
Yeah, Murat Michaels. We have 100 LTD on that, $25 a pop. And then, of course, we'll then go with someone that I have been rocking with forever. This was a great collaboration. We are very excited to be having not only Mark Spears, but doing our grand opening with Murat Michaels, Brian Polito afar, but having these awesome books and then just selling books in general as a comic book store owner is the fun part of the business. It's not about building all these freaking stupid ass shelves behind me. It's actually about selling comics and talking to people and shaking hands and taking pictures and doing all that fun stuff socially. And also making sure that the day one that we open, we know we have to pivot because we are with a completely different fan base. I have 10 anchors in my store. McDonald's is right in front of me. And knowing that I will be talking to a lot of customers that have seen movies and never touched the comic. And that's going to be our job. So we're very excited about it. We're in DeLand, Florida, 22 miles from Orlando, 22 miles or 25 miles from Daytona, 1 hour from Disney World, and 1.5 hours from the greatest football team of all time, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that's our opening. We are keeping the same name. We're not doing what Mr. Barger is doing over there and rocking and rolling with his stuff. Very nice hat there. So I'll let Barger talk about his store.
Well, speaking of putting together shelving and stuff, it looks like somebody else is getting ready to start doing that.
Yeah. So this is the new footprint. I can announce it today because the papers are signed. And going back to, yeah, that's me signing the papers there. So this is our frontage here. Really nice frontage. We're actually thinking about somehow working in the old store stuff into the new store. But it is a 2,100 square foot location. And we wanted to rebrand a new brand for this store. And I'll tell you, this stuff is not easy. You have to do a lot of work. And just like Heidi was talking about Universal coming down and operating out of a Fort Wayne, Indiana warehouse, you got to file a lot of paperwork. I had to hire a brand new lawyer because my lawyer doesn't work in Ohio. You know, the bar association is for each state. My insurance agent wouldn't operate in Ohio, so I had to get a new insurance agent. We had to open a new LLC. We had to come up with this branding because I kind of wanted to come up with a new brand. I've had Wonderworld for 20 years. Wonderworld will still exist. I've created the new brand Dystopia, and I'll give you a little background on this. We were going to call the shop Pop Retro. Mall locations exist with a very limited number of names. GameStop, Bath and Body Works. You want to keep it tight. You want to keep it, but you want to be able to say what you are. And Pop Retro was the name we were going to go with, except there is a contract at that particular mall that says nobody can have a first name of Pop because it's possible that a Pop Mart store is going to go in to that mall. And they're keeping it open for that, which would be awesome because that's more Labubus. However, they said, oh, why don't you just flip it around? I'm like, I don't want Retro Pop. Retro Pop doesn't say what Pop Retro said. I said, can we add a name before Pop Retro? And me and my kids, we Google searched. We did a whole bunch of, spitballing and coming up. And we came up with Cosmic Pop Retro as this new brand. I don't know how successful it's going to be, but it's ours. We brand this out. And that's what the name of the new store is going to be.
That's so where are you getting your Labubus from?
Yeah.
From Lafufu Central.
Yeah,
it looks great. I like it.
And me and Dennis had talked about this. I'm actually starting a new company called Just James Universe. He's talking about Cosmos. We understand that universally we are now selling to a different type of customer, a different type of consumer that can be anywhere at any time across this planet. And so your name really is important as you evolve your brand just in the algorithm in the meta world when it comes to comic books and vintage and toys and collectibles. So I think we do always have to look at ways to better advance our brand to the public and still hold on to that original brand, right? But also find ways to branch out. And
I got beat up a lot for my name when I started out because everybody's was the mom and pop small businesses. Where are you and what do you do?
Yeah.
So like my buddy has Main Street Comics. People said I should have been Port Jervis Comics or something like just very simple. I'm like, but then if I want to open a second store or move my store, it's all stuck in that, like I'm in a box. I said, I want a name that can be anything. So then if I pivot, who knows, in 10 years, maybe comics are gone. I would hate to see that, but if they are, doesn't matter because I don't have comics in my name.
Well, that is something that I brought up multiple times when thinking about taking the Wonder World comics. Wonder World does not necessarily exist as its own name because it doesn't have that second "Who are you" and what you do.
Right.
And like I did with my hippie record store video, I don't know that comics are going to be the massive draw at every point in the future. So why not come up with something that speaks to, we're pop culture, we're retro, we're out of this world. It also has a nice little analogy CPR, because we can play into that for marketing as well.
Yeah, and you don't, when you put comics on your wall, you don't have people coming in asking what the drink minimum is.
Yeah.
So that does help a little bit there.
Yeah. No, it does.
Yeah. And so, we're in a world where we're constantly seeing stores opening. I always question when I see someone saying the store is closing, because a lot of stores are closing because people are retiring.
Yep.
You're in this age of, you got to keep in mind, comics spiked in the 80s, definitely in the 90s, in the 2000s. As you hit this 40-year cycle of store owners, a lot of these guys are just on their way out. And believe it or not, there is a lot of people in this business that have been open 30 plus years. And so those people are looking for other avenues. It's not easy selling comics anymore. You don't buy a collection and say, when I open the door, everybody's going to walk in. No, you're in Florida. How do I sell the guy in Utah?
Yep.
And that makes this business very, very challenging. It makes the business very, very challenging when you are following a bankruptcy to see where you're then get your books. When you are following a info thread on Dynamite saying, okay, what does this mean? What does this mean for me to get my Dynamite books?
Right.
That's the only thing I care about at the end as a business owner. Nick's a friend, so obviously I care about that as well. But at the end game, my customer is going to say to me, why don't you have any new Vampirella books or Red Sonja books?
Nice.
That's going to be very important. What's his new series coming out? Harley
Elvira.
What? Harley Elvira.
Right. Yeah.
Are we
And
getting that
Stitch,
book?
he has a Stitch book coming.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to be a hot book. Every Stitch book I've had before has always been a great seller.
Right.
Kids
exactly.
love that freaking thing.
Jesse, when is the grand opening?
So our grand opening is going to be the 27th of this month. Mark Spears is here from 11 to 12 to 1, 11 to 2. And then he has the jet. And the great thing about Mark, he's on vacation. So I really appreciate him doing this for the brand, for the store, for my family, for the team, for the consumer base, for the retailers that are coming out. Hive is going to be the facilitator for it. So that's the grand opening, the 27th. We technically launched the Polito and the Do You Poo exclusives that Saturday and Sunday, but I'm sure they will come in early. So that is the goal. We're going to soft open probably by Sunday, just so we have 5 days under our legs to kind of say, okay, this is how the cash drawer works, and these are how the cameras work, and these are the stands that won't fall over when someone touches, the fixture.
Dennis, when is your grand opening?
So we're shooting now. Like I said, I'm out of my league here. First of all, I have a bigger city with bigger approvals that I have to get, all of that. But we're shooting for August 5th soft open and an August 8th hard grand opening.
There we go. And then listen, this viewer says comics on all media sells, like Insta, eBay, Facebook sell page, not just brick and mortar store. You're 100% right. That's why we believe very heavily in live selling platforms, the ability to sell comics wherever and whenever. And these guys are going to continue to be heavy in that, I imagine, moving forward. I know Jesse is for sure. So that'll be very interesting. Do you guys both have plans to have live selling? I
want to make a statement on that real fast before these two say something. We're always selling. when we're on the show, we're selling our brands. But I think what happens is when people say, oh, you're going to be selling on eBay and you're going to be selling on whatnot and you're going to be selling on Facebook Live. No, we're always selling. We're not always selling product. We're selling our brand. So if you see me post something, it might not be engaging to say, hey, I want $29 from you. I'm just telling you about my brand and why you might want to in the future spend $29 with me.
Well, and I guess I should say this at this time, Jesse. Jesse onboarded me to the Comic Book Shopping Network, and my first live sale on eBay is July 9th. I can't remember what time it is, but so I will be debuting my show on the Comic Book Shopping Network.
There you go.
Emmett, you're also working on.
Yeah,
the Comic
I
Book
was
Shopping.
onboarded earlier, but I had a bunch of medical stuff, and I just got my all clear. Everything's good to go.
Oh, good. Awesome.
Yep. So now it's full steam ahead. I've got a lot of stuff, and this is one of them. I'm going to be contacting the gentleman Aaron soon.
Yep.
And get mine set up. I'll probably be after Dennis, but yeah, shortly thereafter, I have a ton of stock. The only thing is I have to get right. Like I have a lot of books that I don't know if they're appropriate or not, or what they are allowing, what they're not allowing. So I'll have to.
You're wearing a baby blue MTV shirt. Trust me, you're good to go.
Yeah, I got a lot of the Zombie Tramp books by Mendoza. Hundreds.
Yeah. Wasn't that a great series?
It was.
That was a series that sold a ton of freaking books.
And I'll tell you what, at the end of Diamond, there was still a ton left there because I bought them.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to tell them, I don't care if the spines are bent. I don't care.
Yeah.
Just send it to me. I will take Zombie Tramp. Yeah. There are certain comics that we have seen over the history that just freaking sell. People don't care about, we're talking about grading at the beginning.
They print their print run
on toilet paper. Yeah. It's literally, well, no, I shouldn't say that.
But the books are printed. The print run is printed on them. This is one of 2,408 or some shit. They got the print runs right on those books. It's great.
I will also be on eBay Live much earlier than these guys. I'll be selling on Thursday night. It's time to get ready for San Diego this year, so I've got a ton of stuff I'm selling. Make sure you guys come hang out with us Thursday night at around I think 7 my time, so it'll be like around 10 p.m. Eastern or so. We're gonna have a ton of stuff. I got signed books, I've got major keys, I've got slabs and unslabs, all kinds of stuff. I have a huge Walking Dead sale. I got a complete collection of Walking Dead I'm going to be selling on eBay Live. So come hang out with us. Also, you guys, go check out the website, beyondwednesdays.store, where I'm adding new stuff every day. We have all the variants that we do for the Beyond Wednesdays retailer exclusive variants that we're working on are going to be available on the site. Right now, you guys can go pick up Grommets, our first retailer exclusive variant, limited to 500. It is available on the site, but more importantly, go check it out, you guys, for all of the eBay store stuff that I've been adding over the last week. I mean, there's so much stuff on there that's absolutely crazy. Slabs, shirts, just super rare stuff. And if there's something that you want to make or offer on, do it, because I got to pay for San Diego this year, and this is how I'm doing it, by selling comics, including things like, how about a Batman 227, 6.5, 6.0 first appearance of Thanos. We've got a big boy book. We've got the 7.5 Hulk 181. I think I
submitted one of those Batmans to PSA.
That's a great book.
So this is available, and if you guys want to make an offer, go check out the store. Link is below, as well as the link for the eBay store on Thursday. We'll see you guys over there. Great show tonight, you guys.
I got some pickups.
Shout out to
you. And I also wanted to ask a question of everybody that's out there.
All right, let's go pickups. Here we go.
Well, go ahead. What's your question?
Just to answer Igor, I'm opening in Toledo at the Franklin Park Mall, right next to Spencer's on the J.C. Penney wing. Jesse?
J.C. Penney's.
Yeah.
They
It's
still have
still-
J.C. Penney's?
Yeah.
That is crazy. The hell have I been? Holy cow. What was your question, Emmett?
Where's your store? But Jesse, Igor wants to know where your store
I'm
is.
in DeLand, Florida. DeLand, Florida. It's I'm gonna be posting a video tomorrow with my address and everything. So
DeLand between the ocean,
between
and
Orlando and
the
Daytona.
lake,
Yeah.
and the Alligator Alley, and
Yeah.
I need a management system for subscribers. If anybody knows of one, I'm constantly scrambling for books. Oh, did I sell it off the stand before the guy comes in? Because, he just added that to his list, or I forgot it was on his list. There's no management system that I know of.
Yeah. So there's this thing called a computer.
I have them on a spreadsheet,
Okay.
but
you can
the
sort
lines are tiny and I'm old.
Right.
The great thing about the old system, the pull box system, as many other things that I know you hate pull box, but it would print out every book that was for each customer for each week.
Who do you use your credit cards for?
I use
Square.
Yeah.
Okay. Square has its own inventory system. Just use Square.
Can I upload the CVSs from the
You
what's
should be
coming out
able
each
to.
week? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
I'll
Yeah,
check
just go right into their management system. It will put the pictures on your Square, so when you're charging the person or you're scanning it, it comes right up. Bam, bam, bam.
Thank you very much. Oh, nobody has to help now. Thanks.
Yep, there you go. All right, I got some cool ass pickups. I only got 4, but I got these promo cards from 1953 from Coke.
Oh.
Yeah, very, very cool. So I
Look at all of them.
Yeah, I got about 100 of those from 1956, and then I got the same thing, friendliest drink on earth, drink Coca-Cola, and I got about 100 of those. And then the other cool thing, I didn't think it was really cool until the person told me the price. I got this, and I don't know too much on it, but I thought it was just great.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it actually, believe it or not, has power to it and all that. So I had to fix that up, and the blood and all that lights up. So that was pretty
Does it have a company name on it?
You know what? It does, and actually shows the artist somewhere, but I will get that, and we'll figure that out after the
that's
show.
gorgeous. I love
That
that.
is cool.
Yeah. And then I missed my ghost in Arizona. So I bought something and I didn't know what I was buying because it was sealed. It was closed. But when I was buying everything at the garage sale, I'm like, you know what? That's a cool box. I'll take that box. So I ended up buying this. I think we're going to get rid of it because I think it is haunted. But I ended up buying this very cool box, right? And I thought, this is an awesome box. We're going to do XYZ. And then I opened it up. And it's this freaking creepy ass girl that has all the freaking clothes that you can change. So that's not staying in the store. That is actually going away, but I wanted to show it as a pickup.
Is that American Girl?
I don't know what it is. I just know it's America Gone, the store. So because it's not staying in the store, it is creepy. And I've had 4 people come in and they've immediately seen it and they said, I'm not coming to your store if that doll is staying in the store. It's crazy.
I must have 20 to 30 of those in my basement. This Halloween, I'm going to do an event where you pay $20, you get a doll and paint, and you make a haunted dolls.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
It kind of reminds me of the, what was it? Vincent Price Shrunken Head Kit.
Yeah.
Apples not included.
100%.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Emmett, what'd you get pickup wise?
Oh yeah, they just came in today. So I have this old timer. He's always told me he worked for comic books and stuff, and unnamed, like he worked in like like the artists who had like little studios.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
worked for them, and he was never credited. But he always brings me cool shit. So it was the entire run of 7-Eleven's 1977 Marvel cups, 26 of them.
I saw those.
Yeah, they are super cool.
You know, I immediately opened up my list, and I'm only missing 6 total cups for every cup that 7-Eleven made with comic book content.
Yeah, so they went from 75 to 77. If you have all of them, I've seen them sell for as much as $2,200 for in the 2 years. Well, actually, it's 3 years. 75.
I had so many of them that Brian Polito sent me his list, and I sold him. I want to say like 30 or 40 cups.
Yeah, they're very cool. These need to be cleaned. They'll range in price from like $5 to $20, depending on condition, and the Fantastic Four one probably around the movie time will sell pretty good, $20-25. But
Yeah, I remember growing up when I'd go to 7-Eleven, the only cup they ever had was the Daredevil cup. And I was so pissed because I'd have to get on my Pro Huffy sports bike and I'd have to go across town to 7-Elevens to find the Stan Lee and the Dr. Doom and the Spider-Man and all that shit. And then, next week comes, I go get my one comic book I could afford, go get a Slurpee, freaking Daredevil cup. I'm like, son of a gun. It's like when you...
My town was so small, we didn't even have a 7-Eleven, so I didn't even know these existed until I went to a comic book shop in the 80s in the big city, and they had them there, and I think they were $1 a piece then. And I bought my first cup from a comic book shop in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah. 7-Eleven, when you look at it historically wise, was very comic book friendly, is very sports friendly, right? You got your Slurpee cup with the baseball card underneath it and all that as well. And I think 7-Eleven culturally for the 70s and 80s will go down as one of the biggest supporters of our industry.
Look how many of our guests got their first comic book from a spinny rack at 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think growing up in those days was a little bit different. And that's why I'm always looking at cultural things. I don't know how long it takes Lunar to be part of our culture.
Right.
Does that take 20 years? Does that take 30 years? How do they become culturally part of our industry?
They have to do something.
Right.
They have to communicate. They're cold and distant.
Yeah.
So they're sort of like a monolith, which you can point at, but it really doesn't.
Here's the
part
problem:
of the family.
they don't need us. That's the
right. When's your turnaround on your PSAs that you send in?
I've been told 30 to 40 days, so that puts it
for
right
all
around
200.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, they don't have. Here's the thing. I don't know how many retailers were in that initial thing, but they've got an entire crew that they're training, and they're going to have them ready before they start taking other submissions. So hopefully, undivided attention.
Right.
Yeah.
I just think that we get a lot of opportunities to spend our money, and none with an upside like this for what we're paying.
Right.
200 books, $25 a book.
And those are books you don't need to sell, so you can leave them at the highest price.
Exactly. I mean, if it comes back as a 9.2 on the Deadpool, the first Deadpool, okay, great. Whatever it goes for, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's an experiment, and like I said, I get bored, and I'm looking for new things to do.
Yeah. Well, good shit, you guys. Great show tonight. Thanks for everybody for joining us. Big shout out to Heidi MacDonald. That was a great moment for this show, and we can't thank her enough for joining us. We're gonna bug the hell out of her to bring her back, and can't wait to meet her in San Diego this year at some point. Hopefully, I run into her. And San Diego is going to be a lot of talk moving forward these next couple of weeks. And come hang out with us.
She is not going to be happy. Atlanta beat the Mets by 5-4.
Oh, there we go. So,
and I do want to say something. Today, I just got tables at New York Comic Con.
Oh,
so I will be talking to all you guys about
how many
what
tables
I just
you
got
got
today.
Well, we'll talk about it. So, that being said,
also Pokemon.
Much love, you guys. We'll see you soon. Adios.
Take care.